muted. Yeah, no, so I'm personally of the belief that there is a way to joke about it in a way that like can be largely unoffensive. And when I say like a way to joke about it, I mean there's like certain things that can be joked about in a certain context that can not instantly be as offensive as the most offensive or brazen way of joking about it. Those topics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. When it comes to certain other topics though, like slavery, massive genocides, etc., I usually try to like leave those mostly for myself anyways, like off the table. And if somebody else is going to engage in humor in that in those fields, I largely stay relatively reserved, because I do think that it's very difficult to quote unquote joke about these things without having some sort of like underlying silver lining or silver lining of truth, if that makes sense to them. Not to the messages themselves, but to the jokes and air quotes that are being said.
Okay, so like, I'm trying to think of how to approach this, I guess.
Sure.
I don't really accept the idea that like you can't joke about something very offensively without it being like a belief that you secretly hold or something.
Wait, so you think that it is possible to joke about something without having any belief in said joke whatsoever?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I would think so.
Okay, like it's potentially possible to posit, say for instance, a joke about white nationalism whilst not holding those beliefs in any capacity whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like it's possible to say something like, man, I really fucking want an ethno-state and a 51% white ethno-majority in the United States without actually believing those things.
That doesn't sound like a joke.
Well, wait. Well, okay, so already we're at an impasse. RPG has said these things before.
Okay.
And you say, okay, are you, like, you're acknowledging this, or?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't actually know if he said it.
Oh.
I pretty much just have to take it, like, at face value and just assume that you're correct.
Let me see if I can't find the debate that they had with White Nervosa, because I think he pretty much, like, just blatantly said it in that conversation that they had. Do you remember when I came into your stream, like, a month and a half ago? Or is that, like, something you forget?
No, I remember.
Yeah, and we were talking, I think it was a pretty cordial conversation, honestly, about how if RPG's like worldview was actualized in America, that somebody like you would not be allowed in it because of how like tolerant you are of these things, of things like black people and things like minorities. Do you remember that at all, or?
Yeah, I remember talking about that.
Yeah. Do you still hold any of those beliefs, or do you think that like instead you actually can live as a neo-lib in a world where Nazis control, like say for instance, the means of productions or means of production, or like our political industries?
I have no idea, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, I can see maybe this is getting a little estranged. So I don't want to like go completely out of left field here, but like if you wouldn't mind, I'd be comfortable in like just sending you some of the quote unquote jokes that were shared in that Discord. You know them as well as I do.
Sure.
You're literally in there, and you can tell me like whether or not these are jokes or like what the joke is, maybe like what's the.
Okay.
Yeah, is that okay? Like.
Yeah, that's probably going to get really weird, but okay.
It shouldn't get too weird. Like people actually do careers out of this, right? Comedy like largely critiques jokes and looks at them in a very visceral setting. It's not like all comedy is just like this lame social phenomenon, right? There's like an actual science behind this. You agree with that, right?
I have no idea.
You have no idea whether or not you agree that there's an entire industry and career field behind comedy, or?
Or no. I know. I agree with that. Just I was something about the way you worded it.
Okay. Well, so again, so these are jokes that were said largely in, well, not even largely, completely, I guess, in privacy, that I guess were intended to elicit some kind of response. As most jokes are. Here's a few links of them.
Of course.
Yep, I'll send them in the conversation that we're having right now. You can tell me like what the, just like if you could, like just shed some more light on these. Like what is the humor behind these, if that makes sense?
Okay, this is going to be really difficult. Yeah. You're going to have to give me a second.
No, you're totally fine. Take all the time you need, honestly. Yeah.
I probably can't really show these on stream.
Yeah, I was going to link them in my stream chat too, but I don't think I can either. I don't know if
yeah, I was going to say it would probably be more helpful if I could, but I'm not going to, just to be safe.
Yep. Now I could get into how that might be a problem in and of itself, but I'm not. That might like lead me down to a path of defending Twitch's terms of service, which I have no implication of doing whatsoever.
Yeah, well, we just don't have a choice as far as the terms of service go.
Yeah. I'm glad that you understand that. But you can see these jokes, right? That's all I really care about is that you can see
yes.
them. Okay. And then if you want, we can just go by like joke by joke. I know this is anybody watching my stream right now. I'm really sorry. Like I just can't show you these things because like my stream and Mitch's stream probably as well. Very well might get taken down. You'll just have to like trust me that these are some pretty edgy jokes and like. I guess roll with the punches here for a second, okay? Anybody answering?
I'm gonna try to like describe this first one, and hopefully it won't be
the
like...
Black Monopoly one, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think describing is in the clear. If you get banned for this, I'll take the blame. Okay? How's that sound?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even expect you to take the blame. Fine.
Because I'm a liberal, right? No, I'm just fucking around. I'm fucking. All right. Yeah. So if you could just describe that first one for me, that'd be great.
It's a Monopoly board. It says Black Monopoly, and basically every single space on the whole thing says "go to jail."
Not every space. Not every space.
Not every space. The other one says "in jail."
In jail. Okay, nice. So I'm just curious. Like, what's the joke behind that? I'm just curious.
It's hard for me to like explain. I feel like it's really obvious.
Yeah. Well, if it's that obvious, you should be able to explain it really easily, right? What is the joke here? I'm just curious.
Well, the joke is like black people go to jail.
Yeah, that's the joke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, like that is the butt of the joke. That is the punchline. That is what the joke is supposed to elicit in sort of like a way, like or not a way. Sorry. That is the message that the joke is trying to convey in a humorous light, right? You would acknowledge that, right?
Yes.
And it's not trying to do anything else, right? We're clear about that. This isn't supposed to like speak to some sort of like complex political phenomenon that in any way, shape, or form is somehow inclusive to blacks and like gives them a voice or anything like that, right? Like this is literally just, hey, black people when they play Monopoly probably just go to jail all the time because that's what they do in real life, right? That's like the joke. That's like the joke, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's really nothing beyond that, right? This is just like incredibly lowbrow humor jabbing at black people, essentially, right?
That's why I'm laughing. It's
it's
so
just
immature.
Yeah, it's just like incredibly immature, and it just like it literally just says, hey, black people, man, go to jail. Yeah. All right. How about the next one from DBO? I like this one a lot because I feel like this kind of like perfectly encapsulates my real contention here. The when blackface.
Oh, the next one from DBO.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We can go to the middle one too, but the one from DBO I think like perfectly encapsulates my idea of like how these jokes have sort of like a sinister underlying political tone to them, but come off as just like lowbrow, baseless humor, if that makes sense.
Man, I don't even know if I can describe this one. This one's tougher. This one's a lot tougher. I'm gonna put that right out the bat.
Yeah.
This is tougher.
Would you say this is a joke that you would like to make, maybe in a private Discord server with amongst a bunch of people that you consider friends?
If I wanted to be really, really edgy, like peak edgy, I gotta hand it to DBO here. He really brought the thunder with these ones. Holy shit!
The thunder being what? Just to be clear, the thunder being what? What is the thunder in these jokes again?
It's supreme edgy.
They're like
it's about as edgy as it gets.
It's the really like baseless, like crude humor that just literally pokes fun at like a certain group of people with really no context.
It's a really crude racist joke. Well, I mean, it's two in a row.
Yeah, we could go to the next one too. I didn't want to get into that one because like the JQ thing, I think like you talked about that on Twitch, you could get behind, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Shut up, Doxy.
Did you want to explain the joke or sorry?
Oh God, I don't think I can explain.
So
I don't want to explain this one.
I'll explain it a little bit here. Hopefully this isn't
okay. Sure, yeah, you do it.
Yep. So it's a Imgur, or sorry, it's two pictures. It's one of like a 50s or 40s. What are those called? Minstrel blackface comedians that like the white people that put on blackface and put on a like a cap or something like that is supposed to have like represent their hair and making jokes about that or like and those kinds of people that make jokes. I'm sure people know what like blackface looks like. The first one is a picture of that, and then the second one is a picture of presumably it's a mugshot of an African American person. And the caption says, "When blackface is outlawed, only outlaws will have blackface." Right? Kind of putting at the joke here is that like, hey, once we ban racism, the only people that are going to be, I guess, breaking the law are the people who the race it's kind of like disconnected to some extent. I guess the real joke is in the wordplay. It's when blackface is outlawed, only outlaws will have blackface, and that the joke there is again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That like once we ban
Okay,
white people
that was a good description.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of scuffed that. I feel like I kind of scuffed that a little bit, but yeah.
No, it was pretty good. I think you got it across.
Nice. Yep. And again, just to be clear, like the joke here is what exactly? It's like once we ban
jail.
yeah, like once we ban like overt racism, the only people that are going to be going to jail are the races that we make jokes out of, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And I'm just curious again, like this is, as you would call it, edgy humor. I can hear you're laughing, so it does have some amount of like I guess it's eliciting some kind of response out of you that probably isn't negative, right? But
really immature.
Yeah, it's just like really immature, really lowbrow, like edgy humor that just seems to kind of put black people just like right up there at the butt end of the joke. It's like there's no other way of interpreting this joke. It's literally just haha, black people go to jail, haha,
It's because the offensive factor of these jokes is so extreme that it's like total absurdity, and it just
Yeah. Well, wait,
kills me.
Yikes. I just want to be careful, though. The idea of this being absurd isn't entirely accurate, right? Because some of these beliefs
of course.
Yeah, some of these beliefs, like you would even acknowledge that some of these beliefs are actually held or even posited by the individuals that communicate in that Discord server, right? The one that got, I think, remade now and doesn't have a spy in it, so to speak.
Yeah, like I don't want to speak for anybody, but yes, it could. It like potentially some people in there might believe this. Yeah.
You're right. Sorry, I'm asking you to speak a lot for other people. I don't want to lead the conversation, but I'll just try to make this a little bit easier. To somebody who said and advocates for a 51% white ethno-majority in the United States, for them to be making or associating with individuals that make jokes like these, do you feel like the connotation kind of changes a little bit from like, hey, this is like kind of edgy humor to like, oh, maybe the individuals that genuinely hold beliefs that are similar to this are making these jokes as a way of reinforcing their own behaviors in a sort of lighthearted manner? Do you think that's possible, or is that too complex?
It's possible.
It's possible. Okay.
Of course.
Nice. Well, shit. That's actually all I really wanted out of this conversation. Is
okay.
Now that being said, I hope you don't feel like I led you. If you want to talk about anything from this point onwards that you wanted to address, like me on, if Twitter conduct, my Discord's recent in air quotes, like the drama that is spawning out of the comments made by people in my community from 3 to 4 years ago, we can talk about that. It's just, I feel like I got out of this what I wanted to. So. Yeah. But you are you are allowed to say anything right now, like barring the N-word, of course. Like we can talk about anything you want right now.
Barring the N-word. Well, I wouldn't say the N-word on my own freaking stream.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Well, and if you said it on my stream, you'd probably get fucking kicked out too, right? Because Twitch is. Yeah.
I'm kind of baffled. I don't know. I thought we were gonna have like a bigger disagreement. I almost like don't know where to go from.
Yeah. Well, wait. Didn't you took pretty big issue, I thought, with like my conduct on Twitter? We could talk about that if you want.
I mean, we could, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It's up to you, dude. This floor is yours, my friend.
I'm gonna be kind of restating what I already said is the only problem, I guess.
Yeah. Fuck it, dude. I took issue with what you said on Discord, so we'll talk about it. Is that okay? Since it feels like I kind of have to lead this a little bit for this to go anywhere. Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah. So when you said, let me see if I can't find it, because fuck my notifications. I'm kind of new to Twitter, so I'm not usually used to having like this much shit in my notifications that I have to scroll through. Okay. When you said, I'm not actually interested in anyone's Discord conduct, it's not like I'm going to cancel you or anything. I just think you're a dick for sending spies into someone's Discord, so I figured it would be fun to look into yours. I'm not bothered that some kid said the N-word in your Discord, trust me. This kind of set me off a little bit because you even showed the process by which you searched through my Discord. It wasn't just like you scrolled a little bit up too far and you saw like, oh man, this is kind of interesting that Wired has such recent racism being so blatantly posted in his Discord.
Yeah, I used the search bar.
Yeah, you used the search bar and you explicitly typed in the N-word, the F-word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you went back how many years again, just for the audience?
Well, that's how far back that's how far back
right, I'll just say it. You went back 3 years to find, I think it was 4 posts, 2 of them by students that I coached at one point that stayed in my Discord, one of them by somebody who donated like $200 to my Discord or to my stream at some point. I'm just trying to give context that these people are not me in any way, shape, or form. That being said, of course, if I harbored it in my Discord, it's a bad thing. I shouldn't have done it. I think we largely scrubbed it out a few days ago. I took care of that, and I want you to know that, like, your concern that you brought up originally, that these things were being said in my Discord ever at any point in time, be it 3 years ago, be it 6 years ago.
I don't have a concern. It was concern troll. It was concern
it was concern troll. Okay, I'm glad. Well, fuck, that's actually all I wanted. It's sweet. So that's all I wanted out of that too. You were just concern troll. Okay, sweet. So concern trolling, and you do acknowledge that racist and edgy humor can have some underlying deeper connotation that might, be aimed at like planting seeds. Again, like, fuck, this is a good conversation. I'm really glad.
I'm kind of shocked. I've had other sort of discussions with people on here before, and it's usually like 2 hours of us getting
what? Sorry, you cut out. I'm sorry.
It's usually like 2 hours of us getting nowhere.
Yeah.
And then like a frustrated hang up at the.
I feel like you and I got a lot of ground covered in the first like 15 minutes here.
And totally like just by accident. I didn't even really come into this with any like expectations.
Yeah. I can maybe this is probably reaching a little bit too far, but can I just say a few things about you if that's okay?
Sure, yeah, of course.
So I came into your stream, I think a month and a half ago when you were playing, I think Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 1. I don't think it was Dark Souls 3, right?
Yeah, I forget which one, but yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I came into your stream, I liked your content, shot you a follow. I generally actually like, I don't want to say we're too close like politically. I'm more of a democratic socialist now. I'm not as much of a SOCDEM, but I think the questions and the conversations that you and I had, like, of course indirectly, right? I was typing, you were talking, that we had on Discord. I think we largely are actually like politically aligned on a lot of things. I largely like your content. I think Dark Souls is and Souls-like games in general are pretty fun games. Not to say that that's all you do on your stream, of course, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, we come from similar backgrounds. I think mostly we hold similar political views. I don't hate you, I think you're a pretty chill dude. I just think there's some trash that might need to be taken out. if that's too loaded, I could just dumb it down a little bit, or I could sort of cozy it up a little bit and just say that there's some individuals that are in your friend group that might be saying some really racist and edgy things that you might not be aware of these jokes or these statements being said's like effect on your unconscious mind. But again, I know that's kind of reaching a little bit. That probably sounds like I psychoanalyzed you. I'm sorry. So I come from a psychology background. I studied psychology for 5 years in college. So I know that seems like super reachy, like super psychoanalysis wise. But if you like,
it's a bit of a reach.
Yeah. I know. I didn't know where the conversation was going to go. You said you didn't know what to talk about. We covered a lot of ground in like 20 minutes, and now it seems like we're kind of like So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I'm not like a debate guy. This is kind of foreign for me.
A little bit.
I've had a couple discussions on here, but it's not really like I'm not good at it per se.
Yeah, I'm curious though. Do you think this is a debate? Are we like debating right now, or?
Initially I kind of thought it was going to be a debate, but we don't. I mean, I think we disagree on a lot of things, but it's
okay. Wait. You do think we disagree? What are the things do you think we disagree on? I'm just curious.
I think we disagree on the evaluation of individuals in question on the server and whatnot.
Yeah, RPG or DBO or Membunga or that.
Definitely Membunga.
Membunga, okay, yeah.
Definitely him.
Yeah, I don't really know too much about them. I'll give some credit where credit's due. Right, I think I had 2 in the Imgur gallery. I think I had 2 pictures that were from them, and I've obviously never talked to them before. It was just sorry, it was just like memes that were shared that I saw from them. Was it 2 or was it 3? Fuck, he was the dude with they were the dude with the Jigglypuff thing, right? They had the trans post from the Mario thing, and that was it actually. Yeah, maybe because I even remember like reading that quote unquote joke. I remember like reading that and thinking, this isn't like this is definitely not the cream of the crop for like if I'm looking for if I was looking to psychoanalyze somebody and like predict as to whether or not their behavior could be like racist or racist leaning, or how about this? If I could predict somebody's score on an implicit association test, I would not immediately think that like somebody like MitchFynde is going to be the guy or the individual that scores like, you know, super racist, super transphobic, etc. So maybe MitchFynde was pretty unfair. I think the Ventura guy. Sorry.
He's 10 out of 10. MitchFynde is 10 out of 10, the most racist guy in the world.
He is. Okay. Well, then never mind.
I just want to throw that out there.
Okay. Well, then never mind. Then I guess maybe.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh, you're joking. Okay. Nice. I can't tell you. See, this is sort of the problem a little bit. Is to some extent you've probably heard of the word cryptofascist before, right?
I have. Yeah. Usually thrown at me in like Twitter debates.
Yeah. Well, just to be, I don't think you're crypto-fascist. I hope you, and I mean, I know that you said in the Twitter post that you had wished that you had posted some of these edgy humor or edgy jokes or whatever to sort of to be lumped into that category. But I feel like there's a reason.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a reason you didn't, and I feel like you kind of know what I'm getting at when I say, you know, when I say
honestly, the reason why I don't post edgy stuff in Red Pill servers, I don't want him to get. I know people are on his ass.
Wait, what? You cut out again. Sorry.
I don't post edgy stuff in Red Pill server because I'm afraid I'll get to be honest.
Yeah. Wait. So, I'm a little bit curious. You do say edgy jokes like this, or like, and when I say like this, I want to be clear. I'm talking about like the DBO, Jewish question, white nationalism, like black people stuff. You say jokes like these in private, just not like in RPG server.
Yeah, it's you know, usually stupider stuff than that.
Could you give me an example? Like, did you? I don't know. Maybe you'll hate me for this.
No.
You can't. I guess
you're gonna have to take my word for it because I can't get.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll find it at some point, right? Maybe if it becomes a problem. I mean, nah, I'm just fucking around. If it becomes a problem, like I don't know. It doesn't seem to be that like you're the case. Sorry, it doesn't seem to be the case that you're the type of individual to take this sort of humor and like extrapolate a lot from it. At least based off the lack of any posts that the person that I'm in contact with saw from you and BrentoBox in these Discord servers, I'd say that largely speaking, you and BrentoBox are two individuals.
Oh, me and Brento are the good guys.
No, not the good guys. Just to be clear, I'm not saying the good guys, but out of like maybe the lesser of two evils is sort of something that I could say, right? You guys are just like people that are complicit with these sorts of jokes that won't engage in it yet. I would say like maybe the individuals that aren't. This sounds really bad. I know to like on a baseline level, but if I had to just come out and say it, I'd say that like you and Brento are two individuals that might not be fully there yet, and there's still hope. I realize that sounds really.
It would take me a lot to get fully there.
Yeah, I would hope so too.
It would take a lot.
Yeah, I would hope so too. Like I said, but yeah, fuck. Shit. Yeah. I guess I'll restate it. Like, we're pretty clear on the edgy joke thing, right? Like, sometimes people can harbor racist values, and that those racist values,
of course,
could be extrapolated.
I just don't like to assume that of people, I guess.
Ever? Or like sometimes?
Most of the time.
Most of the time. So if somebody says, like, haha, Jews in the oven, haha, fry them up, you would not try to assume... I'm just curious.
If that was like my first like interaction with them, maybe. I don't know. Like it depends on the tone, depends on the setting.
There's a lot of context that might be relevant. I guess.
Yeah, like there's going to be a lot of other context, or at least some. There's going to be some other context that you have to like take into consideration. Like if some like edgy kid comes into my server and they think we're edgy and they're like, oh, you know, I got to impress the edgy guys, then obviously they're going to like try to pull the most edgy thing they can pull.
I see.
And like that could be the case with a lot of the memes in Red Pill server, to be honest. Like, you know, you come into an edgy server and it's like, well, this is where we get to say the most edgy stuff.
It kind of feels like we're using the word edgy as sort of like a, I guess anagram doesn't really work here, but as sort of like a pseudonym for like incredibly lowbrow and just like blatantly racist.
It could be transphobic or homophobic or something too. Yeah. It doesn't have to.
I just mean like we're putting a lot of stock in the word edgy when it's literally just, hey, you know, the jokes that are being said are like the butt of the joke that is being said is trans people suck or black people suck or go to jail often or Jews own the world or something like that. Like that's the butt of the joke. And it feels like to call that edgy is to sort of dance around that fact, right? Whereas like the joke is literally just aimed at conspiring that Jews own the world, or outing black people as like genetically inferior or more predisposed to crime for some arbitrary reason. It feels like this being the butt of the joke and then being able to call it edgy is kind of a cop-out. It's like I think I take much less of an issue with the avowed racist as I do the closeted racist, if that makes sense, right?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so if somebody were on stream every single day, kind of dancing and flirting with racism, but said repeatedly, "I'm not racist, I'm not a neo-Nazi," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then you go into, say, for instance, like some of their more private spaces, and find out that, in fact, like, you know, behind closed doors, they have a high proclivity to joking about Jews owning the world and black people being genetically predisposed to committing higher rates of crime than whites. It kind of begs a lot of the question there. It's like, wow, like, this is all you do, or this is the majority of what you spend your free time doing with your friends, is like joking about these things that you kind of flirt with on stream in a more open and avowed way. It kind of like, it feels really shitty to just be able to write this off as all of it's the same edgy humor, you know?
So
like
this is just purely about Red Pill then.
Yeah. Well, it's not though, because again, like DBO is involved in it too. But
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like purely about these individuals in question in the Discord.
What do you mean by that exactly? I'm sorry.
Like
I'm speaking to like crypto-fascists in general that like sort of posit one view on stream and then like completely betray it off stream. So LectureFan, I think, is somebody who kind of gets, I don't want to say gets away. Well, LectureFan is somebody who escapes this criticism, because everything I've seen of that individual in private, and by in private, I don't mean like I'm fucking calling up his wife and asking for leaks or some shit. Just like in the open Discord server that he allows people in, he doesn't seem to joke about or flirt with white nationalism. So whereas I might ideologically disagree a lot and very heavily with somebody like LectureFan, at least somebody like him, it doesn't, I guess, say one thing on stream and then like betray a lot of that image that he presents himself on stream as somebody completely different. Do you get what I'm saying, or is that?
I mean, I guess I get where your logic is coming from, I guess. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so again, I'll lay it out super crystal clear here. If somebody comes on stream and says, "I'm not a white nationalist, I'm not a neo-Nazi, here's my political compass test, I don't hate Jews, I don't hate black people, I don't want an ethno-state or an ethno-majority, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera," or if they say some of those things and maybe actually say some of the other things like, well, I just think 51% of the people in America should be white. What's wrong with that? I'm not saying that I'm racist or anything like that. Somebody says these things, right? And even if they, in the first example, deny any criticism of being racist because they don't actually posit these views, or in the second example, they kind of flirt with it, but they don't like really come out and say it. But then you find out that in, say, for instance, again, like a private Discord server, in air quotes, whatever that means, they're literally just joking about those very criticisms that they're accused of engaging with on stream. Isn't it kind of suspect, right? Like, isn't this what Google got a lot of flack for with the Project Veritas whistleblower shit? Is that like they said repeatedly they weren't trying to rig the election or influence people's opinions with their search engines, and then Project Veritas like scooped up that incredibly fallacious story where they like quote mined the fuck and took all of that woman's words out of context, and people were like, "Oh my god, this is what they're really doing. They're actually trying to do these things. Oh my god, they said that they weren't and they are." You know what I'm saying? Or do you know about Project Veritas or anything like that?
I kind of forget what it was about off the top of my head. When it was fresh in the news or whatever, I knew what it was about, but I got the memory of a fucking goldfish.
Yeah, no, you're good. But then fuck the Project Veritas example. All I'm trying to say is that like when things are sort of when information about the individual in question is when a person's public image is based around, dare I say, grifting, that might be kind of like loaded. When RPG makes the sort of an image of himself out to be that like, I'm not a racist, I'm not a white nationalist, I just believe in securing my own people's interests first, and says that like the furthest he goes is like nationalism or being a nationalist on stream, but then you don't even need to go like 2 clicks away on the internet to his private Discord server to see that he flirts with these things like pretty consistently. And I don't think either of us disagree on that, right? Like he definitely flirts with these things rather consistently.
So he
Doesn't
talks
kinda-
about one thing. He talks about one thing, and then he jokes about sort of related topic.
No, not even related. Like more extreme topics in private.
More
if that makes
extreme
sense.
topics,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they are related topics. Just
I guess. Have you ever heard of the term like hiding one's power level
yeah, of course.
from like Dragon Ball Z? Do you feel like RPG might be doing that to some extent?
I have no idea.
There's nothing wrong with this, by the way. I don't think hiding your power level is innately bad or anything along those lines. I just think that when you're hiding your power level to, say, for instance, conceal your white nationalism in favor of like coming off as a less extreme, more just like tribally concerned American, we'll say American enthusiast, it kind of like doesn't it sort of allude to some darker truth that in fact you want to secure like an ethno-majority of white people in the United States, and that you joke about these things in private by literally implying that black people shouldn't be here because they are genetically inferior or because they're more predisposed to committing crime? Is any of
Do you
this
think like
sorry.
do you think it's possible that he could just be telling the truth
Telling the wait, what do you mean?
about what he believed?
Telling the well, no, because he's doing the exact opposite of that, right? By on stream saying that he like denying these things and saying that he doesn't engage in this kind of humor, or if it's not even that, it's just that like he'll frequently skirt away from that topic on stream, but then off stream he's literally doing the exact same things that he says that he doesn't do. It kind of feels like he's doing anything but that. Like he's not telling the truth of anything. He's literally lying about it. That's like my big criticism here, by the way.
So your big criticism is that you feel he's being dishonest.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, yes, 100%. If he were, say, for instance, more open about his white nationalism, like I would be I would not be the same. I would not have the same criticisms with him that I do currently. I would have different criticisms. They would not be the same. So let's just be clear about that.
So it's sort of like a hypocrisy thing.
Yeah, just like a lying thing for me. But yeah, I guess you could say hypocrisy.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know where to go with this.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of led the conversation a lot there. I really.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do any of this, by the way. Like, it just feels like you keep responding with "I don't know where to go from here," and I'm like, "Well, fuck." Like,
I'm a very passive guy. It's my problem.
would you say you're a beta? Would you say RPG calls you a beta cuck in private?
Does he?
I'm just fucking around. You know,
Oh my god.
No, yeah, I'm just kidding.
I mean, probably we debate on stuff on Twitter a lot.
Yeah. No, I feel it.
And we never really get anywhere, sadly.
No, he does think you're the best neo-lib on Twitch, so I guess you got that going for you.
Yes, I've heard him say that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he said neolib, but
I said that he said that, right? Because he linked to your stream one time. And
yes, of course.
I think when he was.
I've heard him say that I'm the best liberal on Twitch a couple of times.
Oh, maybe it was. Liberal,
although,
sorry.
I mean, the stuff that I've been hearing lately, I don't even know. Maybe it's because I'm not a liberal, but I struggle with the whole like labels thing. I can never really figure it out.
Labels thing? Elaborate on that a little bit if you can. What do you mean labels thing?
People have a hard time labeling things. Like everybody I talk to calls me something different. I always thought of myself as a liberal.
Yeah.
Personally.
Oh, but you're saying maybe now.
But I hardly know what that means.
Yeah. You're saying in the broader context of like maybe what you see on Twitter or what RPG shares with you, you're starting to like question and doubt your beliefs and maybe think that like you're not actually what you think you are, and maybe you're a little bit closer to like what he is or something. Or
sorry, there was a text to speech. I didn't really hear what you said just there.
Oh yeah, okay. I was just trying to like expose like how cryptofascism works, and that is to say that like maybe you are living proof of like why these things are harmful as fuck, right? Is because your inclination, maybe say like a year ago, was to consider yourself a liberal, but ever since you've been like hanging out with literal white nationalists, you're a little bit more inclined to say that maybe you're not. Maybe you're more of a moderate, right?
It's actually been a lot of the sort of lefty people that have been
the lefty people
saying that I'm not a liberal.
Well, is it the lefty people that are saying you're not a liberal that you see on Twitter that RPG shows you, or are like you're just getting into conversations with lefty people in general and they're telling you you're not a liberal?
Yeah, I had a couple streams where I had like 10 to 20 viewers the whole time. A lot of them are lefties, and most of them are telling me that they don't think of.
Yeah. Well,
or if they do think of me as a liberal, it's because they're like a communist and liberals.
I see what you mean. There is a bit of that. I'll give you that. And I won't try to. I won't deny that or like defend that sort of thing.
It's specifically communists that will give me the liberal thing, but in a negative.
Yeah, like I said, like I'm not really here to talk about that or defend that whatsoever. We could,
yeah, of course,
we could talk about that sometime. I think there's a lot of problems that the left has as well, but it's not like any of the things that I think you and I were talking about on Twitter today and yesterday had anything to do.
No,
with
of course, we're kind of going off on a different tangent.
Yeah, which is fine. I just wanted to be abundantly clear, like that wasn't the aim of this conversation.
No, I get it.
Yeah, so you would say that like it's not perhaps RPG or RPG's community that's having an influence on your sort of sway more to the center or like to the moderate.
No, and my politics aren't changing very much. If anything, my politics might be going more to the left. I don't find myself agreeing more with Red Pill when we have debates. I find myself agreeing less with him.
Okay. Yeah, fuck. I mean, I don't know anything about like when you guys talk because RPG, I know,
of course,
he deletes his VODs, and I don't think you really host your guys' conversations on Discord.
Oh, we haven't had a lot of discussions on Twitch. It's been mostly on Twitter, mostly on Twitter.
I see what you're saying. Actually, fuck, I thought of a great phenomenon that we could talk about real briefly if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Maybe you've heard the statement before, like the paradox of tolerance, right? Like if you allow for intolerance, you are going to necessarily, like if you're so tolerant of intolerance that you will eventually run into an issue in society where the intolerant people are the ones that are in power.
There's a person that comes in my chat a lot that talks about that. Yeah,
I see. Do you think it's possible that like when you engage with RPG, have a discussion with them, kind of disagree a bit, and neither of you guys really change your side or your opinions on this particular topic, and then especially when you maybe say check up on his Discord every once in a while and see that like the same white nationalist memes that you disagree with fundamentally, RPG believing whole scale, if we will. Like I know that you're kind of okay with edgy humor, maybe you're a lot more okay with it than I am, but like at the core or the butt end of the joke, you disagree with something like haha black people go to jail, right?
Of course, yeah.
Do you feel like the repeated or I don't want to say repeated offense, do you feel like the repetition of these memes in spite of your conversations with RPG telling them that you don't really approve of these things, do you feel like there's any sort of like, do you feel like there's something going on there, or do you feel like that is just like business as normal? That's just like free speech, in a nutshell, right?
That's what it is to me. It's just free speech.
Yeah, is like letting people make jokes about minorities, sort of tacitly implying that they shouldn't be here. Kind of. I don't see
the alternative, to be honest. I don't see what the alternative to that would be.
You don't think?
What would I do? What would I do aside from let them make the jokes they want?
What would you do as an individual? I mean, you could do kind of like largely what lefties do, I guess, which is like ostracize individuals like this, seek to deplatform them. You could do what I do, which is talk to them and like raise severe doubts or disagreements with them, and then try to like largely stay away from them when they talk about these sorts of things. Maybe even sort of like say, hey, you're going a little bit too far with this. I feel really uncomfortable. Etc. Those are things you could do. I know that these sound like really beta or pussy. If I had your chat loaded up, I'm sure Membunga or the Omega 7 guy is probably calling me a cuck right now, and I recognize that.
Omega's not even here, I don't think.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. I guess he said he was working until 6 or something. But yeah, either way, like, I realize these seem like really beta responses, but the only alternative that I see to those responses is just being like passive and like complicit with their memery until it reaches a point where it like literally overtakes society, right? Where the jokes that they're espousing stop becoming jokes and they actually become like genuine sentiments that they hold in public because they're gaining enough sort of like support for their ideas, if that makes sense. Right?
I don't really see that as being like a danger with these memes.
Wait, really? You don't think it's a danger that Nazis could at some point like use these sorts of jokes and rhetoric to encourage enough people over to their side such that they might eventually feel comfortable enough espousing these joke and air quotes again in public and like what they were doing at Charlottesville, the 63 or 50 whatever white nationalist events that happened last year?
I don't see it, and anytime that they do feel comfortable getting together, like at Charlottesville, it doesn't go well for them.
Does it? Well, for them or for who? Like for Heather Taylor or something? What the fuck?
No, it definitely didn't go well for her.
Getting run over by white nationalists.
It certainly didn't go well for her. No.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like that reflects poorly on the whole event as well. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's obviously worse for her because she died, but like. Their whole movement now has like a death on their, you know what I mean? And it wouldn't have happened if they didn't get together in public.
Yeah, well, you could also argue that it wouldn't have happened if people just stood idly by and didn't protest, somewhat similar to what you're doing, right? Like your activity, sorry, your preferred method of quote unquote dealing with this kind of intolerance. You don't like me. Do you not like it when I call RPG intolerant?
Hold on,
is that loaded? I know, yeah, I understand.
Would anybody have gotten run over if there was no protest?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, if we let these people, and when I say these people, I'm not saying that these are like aliens or dogs or anything like that. When I say let these people, I'm not trying to other white nationalists so hard that they think that I'm like literally viewing them as other people. Okay, when I say these people, I just mean when we let white nationalists or people that are brazenly intolerant of other individuals protest openly in society and advocate for things that would be very much counterfactual to the entire reason that the United States of America was established to begin with. When we don't protest these events, what do you think happens exactly?
Well, in the last 10 years, I wouldn't know what happens. They don't go without a counter protest, I don't think, at this point.
Yeah. Just fuck around with me for a second. Like, if nobody was counter protesting these things, what do you think would happen? I'm just curious.
I don't know. They'd go burn themselves out and go home.
You think that would happen? You think that like white nationalists, when they are not met with criticism, or we'll say, because criticism might be like a bad game, or
what are they gonna do without a protest?
No, they would still do their protest. They would still do their Unite the Right rally. I'm saying, like, they would still get together en masse, because it's not like the Unite the Right rally was intended to meet with counter protests and run somebody over with a car, right? The point of the Unite the Right rally, as I understand it, was it was protesters were members of the far right, included self-identified members of the alt-right, neo-Confederates, neo-fascists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, Klansmen, Blue Lives Matter, and various right-wing militias. The marchers chanted racist and anti-Semitic slogans, carried weapons, Nazi and neo-Nazi symbols, the Volknut, Confederate battle flags, Deus Vult crosses, flags, and other symbols. Sorry.
Yeah, I've heard some of the chants stuff.
Yeah.
I know they were chanting.
Yeah.
They were chanting some anti-Semitic stuff for sure.
I guess the point that I'm trying to bring up is like you think that if we stopped protesting their protests, that they would just stop protesting altogether, and their numbers would
I'm not
stop
saying
growing?
that they would stop protesting altogether.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not sure that anything would really happen.
Really? You don't think the efficacy of their message might improve a lot if we don't meet their criticism of Western society with criticism of their movement? I don't know if that made sense. I can reword that if you want. Sorry.
I think sometimes the counter protesting goes in their favor, to be honest. If they look like they have like a force that's trying to keep them down, it kind of looks like they're the underdog.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's largely because they are like a minority, right, in American discourse.
Of course,
it just like the majority of America is not like white nationalists. Would you say that they'll always look like the underdog, or are you saying that like the correct counter or the correct like answer to movements that we don't like looking like the underdog is to just largely ignore them?
I'm not saying that we should totally ignore them, no.
Would you say that we should deplatform them? Or deplatform them, sorry?
No, I'm not saying we should deplatform.
Shit, we're so close. I almost had you. All right, sorry. Go on.
I think you'll have a hard time getting that one.
No, it's okay.
I'm not in favor of platforming really much at all.
Sure. But again, we're at a bit of an impasse because you acknowledge you don't like these sorts of ideas, but you don't have a problem with them being said in I guess in the public discourse, right? You also acknowledge that if these ideas were able to be, say, in a hypothetical world, put into power, that they would largely come with a lot of intolerance, which is the very thing that you disagree with, right? You hate hate intolerance. You dislike it when people are able to silence other people's views, etc. You also acknowledge that if Nazis took power in the United States, that there would be a lot of intolerance, right?
Of course. I don't want that.
So we're all, I agree with everything you just said. So glad we're agreeing right now. This is great. All the way up until this point, we've agreed on everything. When I suggest this next step that like, hey, maybe these individuals should be criticized or, even criticize, you agree with. I dig that. And I mean, that's largely what I'm doing here on Twitch, right? Like, I'm not advocating that RPG get kicked off Twitch. I'm not advocating that DBO gets kicked off Twitch. I'm mostly just having conversations. But I don't necessarily, I wouldn't say that like my method of dealing with these sorts of things is the most efficacious way of making sure these ideas go away. My goal in talking with people in sort of like this sort of discourse is to kind of hopefully, this is going to sound really bad, but like prevent people from going over to that side. I know that seems really gatekeepy, or maybe that sounds like mind controlly, but I guess
no, I mean I don't have an issue with that. I mean that's sort of that's what a lot of us in the center are kind of trying as well. Although it's more
both sides.
It's more of a both sides bad.
Yeah, you don't want people going over to Stalin and Mao just as much as you don't want people going over to Hitler and Benito Mussolini, right?
I wouldn't say just as much, but like it's more of focused on sides rather than just one, I suppose.
Okay.
Which I know that's cringy. I'm sorry to the people in your chat. I know that's
no, that's all good. I mean, no, it's not cringy for me. I dislike the fuck out of Mao, dislike the fuck out of Stalin. I've got a lot of criticisms of Lenin too. Don't worry, you're amongst agreement here, at least insofar as you and I go.
That's cool.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if you ever watched my stream before. Completely understandable if you haven't, right? I'm the one that found you out, and I think in your stream I probably came off as somebody who's like a relatively no-name person.
I did watch you like probably like a month or two before, but I didn't really like interact with you heavily at all.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was in your chat though, I knew about you before we spoke. Sorry.
Sure. No, you're totally fine. I just to give a little bit of context about what I do, I'm not on here to like promote Stalinism or promote Maoism or promote like, far left authoritarianism or big state that like controls every facet of our life, right? I am very critical of China, the current regime behind Xi Jinping. I mean, these people aren't like necessarily on the left, but I'm very critical of Bashar al-Assad, Erdogan as well, like current, like real life, I guess, debatable dictators. I only say debatable because of course there's some people that don't view it that way, but current real life like dictators that are, I suppose, under the brand of socialism, I'm largely critical of. Of course, I have my own disagreements as to whether or not they should be called socialist to begin with, but that's completely separate topic. What I'm trying to say is like, I, similar to you, am very much critical of authoritarianism on both sides. It's just that RPG, for all intents and purposes, like you acknowledge wanting a 51% ethno-majority in the United States, that's not a policy that could ever really come about if it wasn't through authoritarianism, right? Probably. Like reaching.
I'd have to think about it more, but just for the sake of the discussion, I'll say sure.
Sorry, so for you, we could shoot out hypotheticals. We could say like, well, what if all the Mexicans just started leaving on their own? Like, yeah, I guess you could say that, but I'm just saying that like,
well,
the way
I think you'd have. Sorry. It would have to be like a limit on immigration.
Yeah, you would have to start implicating like protectionist policies, which would largely be to our own economic detriment, as well as the detriment of many lives. You would have to close up a lot of borders. You'd have to make green cards even harder to get. Same thing with citizenship.
I don't necessarily consider that to be like really authoritarian.
Wait, really?
Not, at least not like hard authoritarian.
You don't think like closing borders at the detriment of our own economy is like a little bit authoritarianism? Like what other purpose would there be to do something like that if it wasn't just to like espouse sort of like nationalism, right?
Yeah, but how is it authoritarian?
So there's no reason for this to happen from like any sort of I think like the only social science that I think you could like advocate for if you were really concerned with this sort of thing is like eugenics or like phrenology or something like that. Like you want to see an ethnically pure United States or an ethnic majority, large ethnic majority of white people in the United States. The vast majority of people in the United States do not care about these sorts of things. To enact your goal or your idealized society, you would necessarily need to sort of kind of like throw those people to the wayside, which is again the majority, if you were a person in power, and sort of abuse a lot of what you have to get what you want at the detriment of a lot of people, right? I mean, this isn't textbook authoritarianism, but doesn't this kind of sound like authoritarianism? Maybe this kind of sounds like Hitler a little bit, maybe.
I have okay, I was slipping the Hitler real quick.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, authoritarianism is a form of government characterized by strong central power and limited political freedoms. Would you say that like any outside? Sorry.
Whose freedoms within the country are limited though by like limiting immigration?
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about RPG's true beliefs, I think he would be largely in favor of throwing Mexicans out, like native Mexicans.
Well, I don't want to talk about what you think is.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, even though we have Discord messages that could say otherwise, but either way, yeah. I guess you could take the argument that, like, you know, we're not actually shitting on anybody that's native to the United States. We're not crapping on any of their political freedoms by making immigration into the United States any more strict. I guess you could try to take that stance, although this seems a little bit weird because, again, like, this would be largely to the detriment of our economy. Presumably, anyways, this would be one of those, like, this would eventually escalate to one of those Sengoku Japan states where you would have a period of complete and total political isolation, right? Or no, was it Sengoku? Fuck, it was isolation.
People in the chat are saying that this isn't even Red Pill's position, so
yeah,
I don't know.
He blocks me on everything and won't talk to me, so I can't find out his positions. But you've probably heard of Sokoku, right? The isolationist foreign policy that, like, headed Japan for, I think, a little bit later than 200 years. Like,
I don't really know much about Japan.
No, you're good. So nobody was able to come in or out of the country for the entirety of the period, right? Not right. Sorry, I guess you don't.
That would be really extreme, though.
Yeah. How would that not?
We don't know if anybody's, like, in favor of that.
This is what happened in Germany, though, like, de facto.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
They started up by, like, closing up borders, building walls, not letting people in or out of the country largely. And then they just exterminated all the Jews with inside, right? Or as many as they could round up.
Sounds extreme.
It does. I agree. It sounds really extreme. Yeah, I 100% agree.
I feel like nobody's advocating for this now. At least nobody that we're discussing.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way.
Did you tell the people the truth about the Jews? Yes. What did it cost? Your account is suspended and not permitted to perform this action. Do you feel like maybe advocating for a Jewish conspiracy and, like, a question about Jews running the world, don't you feel like that's kind of advocating?
It's joking about a Jew.
Okay.
Let's be clear.
All right. Joking about all right, again, I just want to say, I don't see the separation. Maybe you and I are at an impasse here. I don't see the separation between, like, relying on very lowbrow, very, like, butt end of the joke humor. I don't see as much of a separation between stating those sorts of things in private or in public a bunch often, right? Like, literally within the past 5 months, we've got full fucking logs of these things getting done. I don't see much of a difference between somebody, like, sharing these memes constantly in these Discord servers and then especially, like, lying about them or, say, not really being as truthful about their presentation of their political positions on Twitch. Like, if somebody's being that dishonest about their political positions, I don't see them really being, like, above that criticism that they're quote unquote.
Wait, they're being dishonest about their political joke.
No, they're being dishonest about their political positions. If somebody consistently jokes about the JQ, but whenever asked about it on stream, they say, I don't really believe that, or I don't really want to talk about that. Aren't they kind of being, like, politically dishonest a little bit? Don't you feel?
I don't see a joke as, like, an advocation for something.
Yeah, ever? Or...
I mean, how am I supposed to know? Like, am I just supposed to assume that he's, like, advocating for something based on a joke?
Again, like, we can look at some of these memes. You don't think that we can pull anything outside of just the lowbrow butt-end humor that these jokes are? Like, you don't think there's anything else that we can derive from jokes like Black Monopoly and the entire board is go to jail, go to jail, go to jail, and then there's one space that says in jail. You don't feel like there's any sort of, like, derivative beyond...
Which of these memes has Red Pill posted himself?
So he said in response to that meme, he said, lol, that one's a classic. I saw that on 4chan probably 10 years ago. He posted, what's really shitty is all the memes that he posted, I didn't include in the Emger link, which was frustrating because I got all these after I compiled the gallery and already posted it. So this one, I linked this to you. I just got my 23andMe test back, and apparently I have some African DNA. Would I be allowed in a white ethno-state? I'm native English, by the way. And then it's a picture of... Well,
of a black guy,
yeah,
like a quite dark-skinned black guy.
Sure.
That was one I was wondering if you understood that joke actually, because that's a bit of a weird.
That is a bit of a weird.
I know what it's hinting at, but I'm not sure if you do. Just because it's a bit of a that one's a bit like deeper than the other jokes.
Yeah, fuck. You know what? Fuck it. I'm out of the edgy humor circle here. I haven't really engaged in it in a very long time. I'm actually really curious if you feel comfortable sharing the end of the joke here on stream, or if
no, I will. Okay. It's I can actually explain it really well using kind of like social justice-y term.
Okay.
It's actually
I think I know where you're going with this, but
yeah. It's referring to black people that have like internalized internalized racism issues, and they sort of align themselves with alt-right movements for some reason.
Mhm.
It's
Would you say Jesse Lee Peterson, maybe?
Well, I'm not thinking of anybody in particular when I say this. I mean, probably him. I don't really know Jesse Lee Peterson very well. I've only watched like 2 episodes of his show or something.
Okay.
I'm not really super familiar with him, but sure, just for the sake, your audience probably would use that example, I assume. So sure. But like, yeah, there's a joke on the internet that like half of the people in the alt-right are actually just like black dudes who have like like self-hating issues.
Yeah. Do you feel like So I actually kind of I don't want to say I joke about this, but like I am concerned that people like Jesse Lee Peterson flirt so closely with like white nationalism, given the fact that like it would very much be to the detriment of his own self. That being said, like I don't share jokes about this often or ever, and especially when I do, I feel like there's a fundamental difference between me, say for instance, joking about something like that, where I completely disavow everything being said by him and the positions that he advocates for, versus somebody like Red Pill Gaming joking about it when these are the positions that he advocates for, but like he's joking about other people that would not be, I guess, genetically allowed in these movements, following suit with them. You know what I mean? There's like a fundamental difference between like somebody like you or sorry, myself, or even yourself joking about these things versus somebody like RPG, or do you think that's like kind of too much? Like that's not fair to say?
So you're asking if there's a fundamental difference between like us joking about it and him.
What I'm asking is there a fundamental difference between a white nationalist joking about black people not being allowed in the white nationalist movement versus somebody who disavows white nationalism like yourself or myself joking about somebody who would literally not be allowed in white nationalism if it were able to take hold of the United States, wanting to join white nationalism and wanting white nationalism to take over the United States? Do you think there's a difference there at all? Like this is sort of that context shit that you love so much, right? Like
yeah, I mean, I suppose there's a bit of a context difference.
Okay, yeah. Okay, good. And then
I can give you.
Sweet. So I got another one here. So I can't actually read. I can't read some of these words. I hope you understand that they're just they're.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So RPG. Hello, F department. F department being what a bundle of sticks is sometimes called.
Yes.
Yeah. So hello, F department. I'd like to make a claim. Oh wait a second. That means he was watching my stream and heard me abusing him. Lol. And then Ventura says lol. And then RPG says, never used the word monkeys to describe the train dancers. Interesting that he would make that modification. Not racist, by the way, haha. I don't actually know who this is in reference to because this was back in July of this year. I know it wasn't of me because I wasn't even fucking streaming then. But do you feel like maybe the thing at the start there being said, the hello
Can you send me that one?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, sorry, but what? I interrupted you.
No, you're good. Do you feel like that thing at the start there where he said, hello, bundle of sticks department, where we, bundle of sticks is like a modification on the word that he actually used. Do you feel like that could be in some way, given that it's completely and totally irrelevant, right? Like none of what RPG was talking about with Ventura, I didn't even see the full conversation here. All I saw was, hello, F department, and then everything after that leading up to the not racist, by the way thing. Do you feel like, given how far removed the entire question of somebody being gay, much less being called a slur against gay people, as like a pejorative, like, do you feel like there's no reason to put that part in there? It's just like kind of subtly slipping it in, like.
I don't know. It's just, how do I explain this?
Yeah, I'm curious. How would you? I just want to know.
People say offensive words when they're joking around.
Yeah,
or maybe they're angry with somebody.
So I'm curious.
Like the F slur doesn't specifically like always refer to gay people.
Do you think in this particular, I mean, come on, we're kind of being dishonest here, right? Obviously, RPG is trying to claim that the individual in question is a gay person and a bad one at that. Like a person who's gay, he takes issue with gay people, and so he's calling them this slur for that reason, right? You don't think so?
the F slur is pretty much the same as calling somebody like beta or cock. Like
wait, hold. You actually think that, or you're trolling, right?
Yeah. Oh my god, thanks for whatever that was. Oh, Johnny Scarlett. Thanks for the host.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I'm like not paying attention to you guys at all.
Oh, you're totally fine. Oh, you're talking chat, sorry. No, okay, so
yeah. I'm used to having like a super interactive show.
Yeah, I am too. By the way, I just have to.
Of course,
have to largely discard chat right now, just because.
Like, when you have a discussion with somebody, there's nothing you can to chat really.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. So I'm just curious. So like, say for instance, you and I became friends, and then 2 months down the road, I asked you if you wanted to play Dota 2. That's a game. It's a team game. Maybe you've heard of it. It's like a 5v5 MOBA. Okay.
Yep, I used to play League of Legends. So
Sweet. Yeah. So I hit you up. I'm like, hey, Mitch, want to play League? And you're like, yeah, sure, dude. And I'm like, you you bundle of sticks. You better not pick Riven. Would you say that? Yeah. So you get the content. Would you say that like that joke could have been made in such a way that it didn't necessarily need to come at the detriment of gay people indirectly?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Do you feel like by including the bundle of sticks joke or part of the joke, do you feel like I'm kind of casting a very wide brush of criticism on an entire group of people that I probably didn't even really mean to cast a brush on, if that makes sense?
No.
You don't think I'm doing it? You really don't think I'm doing it? No? Wait, okay. So I'm just going to replace the word F, like the bundle of sticks, with the word, the N-word with the hard R.
N-word.
So if in that case where I'm saying you N-word.
The answer's no.
Still? Wait. So
Yes.
this is really interesting. This is really interesting to me. So hopefully walk me down this. Just lead me to why I want to, because man, fuck, like this is such an interesting worldview. So if I message you, I'm like, hey Mitch, want to play some League of Legends? You're like, yeah, sure, dude, what's up? And then completely out of nowhere, I've never said this before to you, right? Never prior in a relationship of two months of us hanging out, talking shit like that. I just randomly said, you N-word with the hard R. You better not pick Riven. You don't think that there's any correlation whatsoever to like me harboring some potentially dangerous or implicit biases against black people?
I mean, people in your Discord were doing that pretty much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 3 years ago. Fuck, dude. Fuck those guys. I'm so glad they
Really?
Yeah, I disavow all that shit.
They weren't your friends. They weren't like they weren't good people.
I told you this in the Twitter post. One of them was somebody who donated like $300 to my stream. They were, I mean, outside of those beliefs that they harbored, at the time this was like, this was literally 3 years ago and a few months. This was before Trump got elected. They were always telling me, dude, you should vote for Trump. I wasn't really politically active at the time, didn't really care. I'll even be honest with you, as I was in my most recent Twitter post, I actually even said like, back then I engaged in some edgy humor, never really got into the N-word. I don't know why, but definitely got into like, you know, using the F-bomb, bundle of sticks, all that other stuff. Like I was pretty close to using jokes like the N-word and stuff like that pretty liberally. But I, again, just never got that far. I largely disavow, not even largely, I disavow all of that. Like I again, like, cause I recognize that there's a potential harm there in people that are not, say, part of your community, or people that are a part of your community potentially being convinced of some rather dangerous ideas that, you know, we shouldn't be probably advocating for, either indirectly or directly, in a society where we want tolerance to be the, you know, a pillar of something that people can parade. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I zoned out a little bit during that because, like,
it's kind of
answered. You answered what I wanted to know pretty much.
What was that? Just to be clear, what was what you wanted to know?
So you just disavow those people now?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, and the person that you can I still find their presence on my Discord? I think I can. Actually, yeah, I can. So I don't think they're in my Discord anymore. We had a big disagreement one time on actually on some shit related to this, where I was like, I'm definitely not voting for Trump. This is when I started to become political, and they were telling me to. We had a big disagreement on this, and we're not really friends anymore. I don't think they're in my Discord, but I could be wrong. Let me check through. I wouldn't kick them out at this point, because this literally happened 3 years ago. I don't know what their behavior is now, but if they continue to engage in that sort of humor in my Discord, I would have no problem kicking somebody like that out. Same thing with that market guy. That market guy was kind of sketchy. I coached him one time in Dota, like a long time ago, on how to play like Timbersaw and shit. And I used to have a video up on YouTube of that very thing, but I unlisted it. But yeah, that guy was really edgy. I never really liked him for that very purpose anyways. Like, even when I was teaching him how to play the game, it was like one of those things where he would make jokes about that stuff, and I was like, man, why? I'm literally just trying to teach you how to play Dota. Why do we gotta keep making jokes at the expense of entire groups of people? But yeah.
Okay.
And actually,
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah, I know you're seeing a pattern. Maybe it's the SJW police, or this is like the thing that you hate about the left. I recognize, but I really want to stress that like you do recognize that if people that were, say for instance, parroting these jokes, and probably do largely hold these beliefs in private, ever took power, people like you, people like myself, especially people that are even, say, colored, and hold the same views that I believe, would especially be subject to either widespread removal or widespread, extermination. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that these are the sorts of edgy humor, like Steve Bannon. Didn't Steve Bannon say that the whole purpose of like him going into those like underage like video game chat rooms was to convert people over to like, because he noticed like a vulnerability in young white men to that like play video games to be sort of persuaded over to white nationalism, right?
I don't remember anything about Steve Bannon off the top of my
Oh
head.
yeah, sorry, fuck him then. Fuck it, never mind. I'm just sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, just trying to demonstrate a bit of a point here that, you know,
my lack of a memory can be a little bit fucking annoying. I understand that.
Oh, you're good. I mean, we didn't talk about Steve Bannon. I just figured that you were aware of them, but it's okay if you're not. It's not.
I would have been a couple of years ago. You know, it's one of those things. I have to let some stuff go. It's just. No, yeah, I got no room up there, man. I got a small hard drive in my brain.
No, I completely. No, that's actually what I'm trying to get at, is that there are individuals that know full well the phenomenon that they are sort of like engaging in. I'll give you a completely out of left field example to sort of prove my point outside of the context of this conversation, because I think you and I both have our own like heated internal biases on this particular conversation that we won't budge unless we see an outside example. Okay.
Okay, sure.
So ExxonMobil, what are your thoughts on climate change, firstly and foremostly? Do you think it is real? Do you think it like exists?
Yeah, I think it exists. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet.
Man-made climate. To be clear.
Anthropogenic climate change. Yeah, or ACG, I think is what it's sometimes called, or APG. I'm actually kind of confused, but yeah, anthropogenic climate change is what I'm talking about. Like humans contributing in large part to why the global climate has changed so significantly, especially over the last 150 to 200 years. That's what I'm talking about. So. Yep. Did you know, or do you believe that ExxonMobil knew about climate change? I think it was 40 years ago? Almost 40 years ago?
Really?
And that they largely...
I think I've heard Touring News talk about this before.
Yeah. Oh, great. You watched Touring. So they knew about it since 1977, and a lot of their investment into things like R&D has actually been to suppress evidence of information like this coming out, because they knew the ramifications that it would cause to their company.
That's nasty.
That is nasty, yeah. So maybe you're seeing kind of how this comes full circle. If you're not, that's okay. I'm now going to bring up the Southern strategy. Do you know anything about the Southern strategy?
I've heard the term, but I can't top of my head.
Yeah, no, you're good. Who was it by? Was it Kevin Phillips? Yeah, I think it was Kevin Phillips that sort of originated it, if you will. But no, it was that Atwater guy. Lee Atwater? Was that the guy? Yeah, it was Lee Atwater. Okay. We could actually watch a video if you want. Definitely not on stream because he says the N-word. Or if you'd like, I can just like read his quote. It's a little bit long-winded, but I'll have to redact the N-word part. Did you want to do that, or is that something that you're okay with doing?
Can you just like sum it up? I don't really need to get the full quote or whatever.
Yeah, so he was saying in 1954 that by being overt with like racism, by saying like just N-word, you can't say those things as sort of like progress is made. So like in 1954 you could say those things, but then civil rights happened, 64, 68, the two bills passed, and you can't say that anymore because it hurts your movement and it backfires. So instead you start talking about things like forced busing and states' rights and all that stuff, and now you're getting so abstract that you're talking about cutting taxes and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and I'm just quoting him now at this point, and a byproduct of them is that black people get hurt worse than whites, and subconsciously maybe that is part of it. He says he's not saying that, probably is, but what he is saying is that it's getting so abstract and coded that you're getting to the point where like you can start to lump other people in that don't necessarily agree that black people are genetically inferior to white people into your movement, because the things that you advocate for do appeal to these individuals in a different light.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So it's like you bury your movement so deep in dog whistles that like, just like an average person could become part of the movement kind of like without knowing.
Exactly. Actually, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude. I'm so glad that we're so far agreeing on it, or at least acknowledging it, the phenomenon. I guess now I will try to marry RPG to it to some extent. Whereas either he is one of the individuals that doesn't realize what is happening, like, the phenomenon at play here. Maybe he's like, I don't want to say he's a puppet because that sounds really loaded and probably makes me seem really condescending, but that he may have been lumped in, because just to be clear, I was not too far off from RPG 6 years ago. I actually have a lot of sympathy for him, as disgusting as that may sound to some of my audience. And if you hate me for that, like, I'm sorry. But like, RPG is not like an estranged, super estranged version of what I was 6 years ago. I never advocated for white nationalism, but I was largely against like SJWs, progressivism, etc., because I saw it as like a threat or an abrupt sort of attack on the fundamentals of what I enjoyed so much in society, which was like playing video games and being able to talk about things that were interesting to me. And I heard like the free speech stuff and all of this sort of like, you know, shutting down college campuses because they're racist. Like I saw that as like an abrupt to that. But you sort of start to like get behind the inner truth. I think as you like investigate these movements a little bit more, and you see that like the individuals that you inevitably steel man when you talk about people like what was that fucking dude's name from the EDL, English Defense League? Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, yeah. When you're defending somebody like him for getting sent to jail when he has a long track record, 30 plus years of being incredibly racist, incredibly homophobic, like you get to the point where you're, you know, the people that you're trying to champion are, I think, people that, again, you and I agree, if they got their way, like, would not be as would not be as lenient towards free speech as we want them to be, right? I mean, if that makes sense at all.
I guess, yeah.
I'll just put it real quick, just a different way. I'll just put it a different way super easily, hopefully. That if somebody like Tommy Robinson, who, say, for instance, 5 years ago, I would have said he shouldn't have been sent to jail. If he got his way, I would have been sent to jail, or I would be sent to jail, if that makes sense, right? Because I'm queer, like I'm pansexual, like he's largely against that. Christian conservative fundamentalist.
Okay, I don't know much. I don't know a whole lot about Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
So I'll just take your word for it.
And hey, just for the record, in case anybody thinks I'm being dishonest, don't take my word for it. Look into these people, because that's something that I did not do, right? I just heard on YouTube, especially I was really active on YouTube, I would see something like reporter gets shut down or sent to jail over article or something like that. And I never really bothered to look into the people that were getting shut down. I kind of just looked into the act and took like an immediate stance against it because I saw it as like as a knee-jerk reaction. I was like, this is an abrupt on free speech. But then you sort of look into these individuals that are getting quote unquote shut down, and then you see that like the things that they advocate for would be far worse than any sort of I guess, like, I don't want to say repercussion that they're currently dealing with, but it's pretty much it's kind of that. So yeah.
I zoned out a little bit there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's just basically that, like, by detaining individuals like this, and really the jail thing, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of, but definitely, like, by disabling their ability to talk at these movements and rally people and gather support for their movement, you're probably doing one of, if not the best ways of making sure that their intolerance never sees power like the, you know, Germany of 1930s and 40s did. That, like, this is actually, despite the fact that it seems so counterintuitive to free speech, and it's really not if you, again, think into it, like, even remotely, but if you don't want to do that, if you want to just, like, take things at their face value and just be like, well, fuck, that just seems really bad, well, it's actually not. Like, and again, like, even if you don't want to take a nuanced look at it, like, it in fact, like, is the case that by not letting individuals like this spread their cancerous ideologies, we're sort of tacitly, I guess, ending it from being a problem to begin with, if that makes sense. Like, it's more of a vaccine rather than like a cure, or I guess we're preventing the fire rather than putting it out.
Okay, so we've covered deplatforming, we've covered imprisoning. Can you work violence in too?
Wait, hold up. No, I said I'm largely against his imprisonment. I even said that, like, I don't necessarily want somebody like that in prison.
But you acknowledged that it was a good thing in prison.
No, again, like, I would actually be willing.
It was helpful to society.
No, again, like, I would. That is as far as I go. Is just like making sure that an individual like that never gets a platform. I'm largely against Antifa's milkshaking stuff. Have they killed anybody yet? I don't even know. But if Antifa does kill somebody, I'm against that.
I was in the same place a few years ago.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know, like, off the top of my head if they have or not.
I'm sorry.
I don't think they have in, like, North America at least.
I'm really sorry. I got a bit.
Informed decision. Don't
that's fine.
Yeah, it's really, I can't hear any.
Inform your worldview.
Yeah.
Fuck. Brooksy, I really appreciate that. I'll address that after the conversation. Anyways, sorry, what were you saying?
I haven't heard of anybody so far, at least not in, like, the West.
You haven't heard of anybody what?
I don't think Antifa's killed anybody, at least not in the West. At least not that I know.
But
Nothing.
even though they haven't killed anybody, I acknowledge that throwing things like milkshakes that have cement or lead in them is probably a bad idea. Not even probably. I'll just come out and say it's a bad idea. You shouldn't do these sorts of things, right? So I, again, can be very critical of some very estranged leftists that advocate for political violence. I'm against that, and I think it sounds like you're largely against that as well, right?
Oh yes, of course.
So again, like we stand together there, and that's great, and that's something that I'm appreciative of. However, when it comes to like taking a critical lens of people on the right that use similar tactics, but like in a very covert manner, which is to say like they don't want to advocate for political violence in public, but of course, like, you know, these individuals, if they got their way, if they were able to sort of enact their policies on a large scale, that we both acknowledge it would inevitably lead to something like that. I guess all I'm trying to say, I'm just looking for a little bit of consistency here, right?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like being maybe against authoritarianism rather than just like the left or the right, right? Like I take a critical lens to people that are authoritarian in general. People that want to, like, say, for instance, again, remove large swaths of political power. Or it's not even political power, it's like political freedoms for individuals in the state that are not white. That just seems like incredibly authoritarian. And now you could say by some of the metrics that the left is trying to suppress that speech, we might take on a similar authoritarian approach. But again, I would cite chiefly the paradox of intolerance as like a reason as to why it might be sometimes necessary. And then if we're going to go into like political violence, or me being like a covert member of Antifa or some shit, which I'm not, or me throwing cement at people, which I haven't, like all that shit I disavow. I'm not for it. I'm not advocating for it, etc. I still want to be critical of authoritarianism though when it shows up on the right, and it doesn't really feel like we're, you know, when I say we, it doesn't really feel like you're taking the right metrics there. We're like, again, you and I are politically aligned on a lot of things. I know you said that at the start of this conversation you think we disagree, but again, like you disagree with RPG a lot. You debate him sometimes, but like,
yes,
it never seems to sort of like, it sounds like you're telling me that like the criticisms that you bring up to him are never taken with anything other than like a grain of salt. Like you'll bring up, hey man, I'm kind of uncomfortable with like what you said on your stream yesterday. You were like advocating for white. I don't know if you ever say these things, but like maybe you'll say like I'm against white nationalism, or I'm not a huge fan of like the ethno state, whatever the fuck super majority that you want. And he says, oh okay, that's fine, whatever. And then he literally does the same thing on stream the next day. It's like, at what point do you draw the line? Or do you just not care about these things? I mean, it's okay if you don't care about these things. Again, I was in the same boat, I guess, 6 years ago. But
well, it's not like me and him aren't close friends, thing like that. You know, we're kind of just associates, I guess. Well, no, we're not close. We're not.
Yeah.
Close.
Oh yeah, I'm just questioning that. Are you sure? Or
no, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay. Just like you're of a very pardon my formalities here, but you're part of a very elite and exclusive group of being part of his private Discord server. And I mean,
I'm trustworthy to him, I think.
Yeah, you're like maybe useful. Is that that sounds really dickish?
No doubt.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. Like then it's not.
I'm familiar with the idea of a useful.
I didn't say you're an idiot. I'm just saying like that you may be seen as somebody who's useful for him converting.
It's a term.
Yeah. It's like you have hosted him before. You do discussions with him. The idea that like maybe RPG sees you as a bit of a vessel to move people from the center or from the like very slight left over to authoritarianism on the right is something that like, you know, maybe you should have a discussion with him about. And I don't know, like for me personally, like when I talk to people about these things, these are important enough matters that it's not like I'm disagreeing with them on whether or not vanilla is a better ice cream flavor than chocolate. It's like if I'm disagreeing with you on things like, you know, you being a white nationalist, it's probably something that I'm going to like you know, draw the line in the sand, put my sword in the ground, you know, kind of lean on the hilt and say like, this is as far as I'm willing to go. If you keep going further, we can't be friends anymore because, you know, like what you're asking for is like literal, you know, genocide. Or again, he never takes it that far, but it's like that's why. So just to be clear, that's why I call him a white nationalist and not a neo-Nazi, is because like I don't see him.
We're skirting with what he might believe versus what he says a bit much for my liking, but
so let's be clear.
That's the thing. The reason why I don't draw the line in the sand is because we're not close friends.
Yeah.
Like we don't like talk about our feelings, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just it's one of those things where you say you're not close friends, but like you're the first person to come up to bat to him when it comes to like beef on Twitter that some random person might have with him that you probably largely don't really know. You're just like, oh shit, this random dipshit that is attacking a friend of mine named RPG. Let me go through his Discord and see like what's going on in his, as opposed to like recognizing the ideological similarities between somebody like yourself and myself might create a more conducive friendship in the future. You're quick to defend the individual that like fundamentally disagrees with you on like very basic things, such as like free speech, such as political freedoms, such as immigration. Well, I don't know your thoughts on immigration, but either way, like you're quick to throw me under the bus over things that like I think you probably agree with more than you disagree with. You just don't know it, or maybe that's kind of...
I just didn't like the way you handled things. That's really all it is.
Well, and you also realize, like, how else do I handle these things? He's on Twitch. He's banned me in his chat room. I've tried to message him. He, funnily enough, has me blocked on Discord when he reached out to me. So he said, hey, and then I tried to respond. I got a Giazzo for you. Do you know what Giazzo is? It's a safe link, I promise. It's just like it's a picture-taking application that I use. This is like here, I'll drop it in the Discord. Like, he sent me a message when he had me blocked, so I couldn't even like respond. He said, hey, and then I tried to respond, and he wouldn't even talk to me. So like, very much somebody who's not big on free speech, despite him advocating for it heavily. There's probably like an ulterior motive or two, right? Like maybe maybe he doesn't really care about free speech. He's using it as like a bit of a mechanism towards his own political expediency. Or maybe that's too much. Maybe you don't disagree with that.
Oh, sorry, I have to deal with something.
Oh, you're good. You're done.
I had a request in my chat that Okay.
You're good.
Sorry about that, Steven. I didn't see your message.
Was it Killer Stevens?
Oh yeah, he didn't want to be a mod.
Oh.
I don't want anybody to be a mod if they don't want.
But actually, hey, props to Killer Stevens. I didn't see him in RPG's Discord. I was kind of scared for a bit, but I didn't see Killer. I didn't see Killer Stevens making edgy humor or being a part of RPG's community. So give him props for that. Anyways, go on.
It's funny, when I joined the Discord, I think the first thing Red Pill said to me is, I hope for your safety nobody knows you're in here.
Oh man.
Well, now everybody knows I'm in there.
Yeah. I hope for your safety. I hope for your safety. Nobody realizes that you're flirting with white nationalism. Oh. I'm just fucking around, kind of.
I know that you're not really fucking, but
it really is kind of, because again, like, I was in a similar boat 6 years ago. I know that like this sounds so condescending when I say it. I guarantee people hate me for saying this, but like, I've been there. Like I have been there. Not to that extreme, but I've been in a similar boat. So I really want to stress that, like, I don't think you actually hold any of the beliefs that are like, occasionally espoused in RPG's Discord. I don't think you have really anything to do with white nationalism. I just feel like, it's happening, and you're kind of like, you're in a position. It's kind of like a little bit like the trolley problem. Like you have the ability or like the wherewithal to like combat some of these issues and save in air quotes. This is like the trolley problem metaphor in full effect. Like you have the potential here to do some good, I guess, by like any moral framework. But you're like kind of just like idly sitting by, or you're not doing enough, I guess, to stopping it. Yeah.
Is it my job to just like stop it or whatever? Like,
Fuck, I mean, ultimately that's up to you, right? Like if white nationalists ever took over the country, I guess you'd have them to answer to at some point anyway.
Of course. Like,
yeah.
I don't want a Nazi takeover of the country.
Are you interested are you interested in doing like small things to help that not be the case? Or do you just like, I don't want Nazis to own the country, but I don't want to do anything about it? I'm just curious.
I would say that I'm already doing so. I'm putting my ideas forward to his audience.
Yeah.
I'm making it available. I'm making like a more centrist message available to.
So again, like
I'm extending.
Sorry, you keep cutting out. What were you saying? You're sending a message?
It's probably my internet. My internet's shit today.
Mine's really bad too. Whenever I load up a hyperlink, so don't worry.
Yeah, like, oh my god, people in my chat are making fun of me. What the fuck did I just say? Oh yeah,
you said you think you are making a concerted effort to stop these things already, right?
I'm trying to bring them over to my side of things.
Yeah,
I know it's a back and forth thing. Like, obviously, they would like to bring me over there or whatever.
Yeah. No, yeah. Again, I know, and it sounds really condescending, but I know exactly what you're saying, because when I was on that camp, and to some extent, I don't want to say I still am, because that sounds really bad, but what it is like I've said before on stream, I will talk to white nationalists, I will talk to Nazis, I'd talk to RPG if he didn't have me blocked on everything and say that like we'll never talk, we'll never talk. But like I will talk to these people.
Okay.
It's just my approach in talking to these people isn't to like get into their Discord and like host them afterwards, or like chill and shit, be mod in their chat, fuck around with them, play some Donkey Kong Country, you know, talk about other shit. Like, and I know you said you're not that big of friends with our
Yeah, I'm not that buddy with, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just like pushing back against these ideas, I think, is very important, and doing so in an efficacious manner is extremely important. It's not enough to just be like, man, I disagree with you, but I'm glad that we can disagree and like still be friends. It's more like, hey, what you're advocating for is fundamentally compromising will fundamentally compromise my preferred way of life if it ever saw political power. I can't like these are the sorts of things that I have to draw lines on, because like again, like these fundamentally shape the way that you live, whether you kind of like know it or not, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I get it. Sure. If I thought he was as much of a danger as you do, I would be reacting more like you are now.
Yeah. So you're saying like you want to wait and see like if Nazis get a little bit more power before you really push back against it?
That's not exactly what I'm saying, no. I wouldn't say.
What are you saying? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just want to find out what we think.
I still don't really accept that he's a Nazi. Like, I'm not saying if he is or isn't. Like,
no, yeah, I wasn't talking about him specifically. I was just saying before you give serious and like or consideration or stock. Sorry.
I don't associate with anybody that I consider to be a Nazi, just for the record.
Okay, I believe you. But that wasn't really the topic that we were on, though. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm getting confused, I think.
Yeah, I was just asking. It sounded like you were saying you would be more interested in like putting more of a wedge between you and RPG's friendship. If like it sounded like, I'm not saying this is the case, but it sounded like you were more interested in doing that if Nazis had more of a representation in the media, or if it became more of a perceived problem in your eyes. Is that correct or no?
No, that's not what I meant, at least. No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. What did you mean? Sorry, I was only doing that to reframe what I thought you said. I
guess it's just if I thought he was actually a Nazi, or like, I mean, sure, like if I thought he was a member of like a big movement that was going to be extremely dangerous, then yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I would put more of a.
Then again, I'll just go back to this. Like, do you think that somebody who advocates for a 51% ethno majority in the United States might potentially be flirting with those ideas? Like, might be
flirting with the ideas? Sure.
No, maybe not even flirting. Maybe like just, brazen about them. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So do you feel like maybe the very thing that you just said, the idea that like you don't think he's a Nazi, but if he became more extreme more extreme to a certain arbitrary line. I'm trying to see what that line is. You said that like you would be interested in sort of putting your sword in the ground and saying, hey dude, I can't be friends with you if you go this far. I'm wondering like where that would be for you, because again, he makes jokes about these pretty repeatedly in his private friend groups that you're a part of. He has said before that he wants a 51% ethno majority in the United States. He is against minority representation. He believes that black people do in fact have a genetic component to why they commit more crime than white people. He thinks I shouldn't say he thinks that Jews control the world, but he definitely has some questions about Jewish
Yeah, I don't know all this stuff. I don't watch his stream probably as much.
Okay. Well, I don't really watch his stream. I know it sounds crazy. I really don't watch his stream that often. I just Sam Cedar will clip stuff that he says and then post it to me, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I try to look into the context for more things, but he usually deletes his VODs. I did see the entirety of that White Nervosa conversation that he had, where he literally did say, he said, try to put on my RPG game face here a second. He said, I don't see what the problem with this is. I don't want America to be 100% white, and I don't want them to be anything less than 51% white. What's the problem with that? So, like, he has said these things before, that he does care about an ethnic majority of whites in the United States. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And just to be clear, do you see that as problematic or not really? I know problematic's
yeah.
a cringe word. I
mean, I'm not an ethno-nationalist guy. It's not my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's not. Well, I know it's not your thing. I'm not asking if it's your thing or not. I'm just asking. Like,
okay, so sorry.
Yeah. It's not my thing either, but that's not what I was asking. I was asking, like, do you think that is a reason to take sort of a more brazen approach to your criticisms of him? Like, it's not like when he's saying these sorts of things, especially after or before you became friends. It's probably important that if he's saying these things again, especially if it's after.
I don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's helpful for me to drive the wedge right now. I just don't see it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm asking is, when would it be enough for you? Oh, I got another meme.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But like right now, it's just, I feel like it's more helpful for me to just be there.
Okay. Yeah, be there and what exactly? You want to, like, you think it's more helpful for you to be there and kind of like let them express these views? And then when somebody finds out that these things are happening and exposes it on Twitter, you think it's better for them to defend them in the face of the person that exposes these things, or what?
I gotta hold on. I'm getting twisted up.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I hate intellectual dishonesty. I don't feel like I was trying.
Somebody play Ha Gotcha.
I was not trying to play a gotcha. I'm trying to see super hardcore, because I got in a conversation with somebody yesterday that accused me of being in bad faith. So I'm trying so hard not to be bad faith here.
You just Jordan Peterson me, bro?
I did not.
You just Ha Gotcha'd me?
Definitely did not Jordan Peterson you, I promise.
You bastard. I can't believe you've done this to me.
I swear to God, if anything I said as a reframing of your argument, like, you feel like is a mischaracterization of it, please point it out. I'm not trying to mischaracterize you. I'm wondering what the line is for you.
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. You kind of so I'm losing myself here. You're gonna have to give me a sec.
Let's pull you back, Mitch. I don't want you to lose yourself.
I'm frazzled. That frazzled me.
That's totally fine, man. That's totally fine, dude. Frazzle dazzle conversations. There's a lot of internal biases that I'm trying to expose that can seem very much at ends with like your inner meaning or your true self, if that makes sense. Like I might be creating a lot of cognitive dissonance right now, if that word means, or if that term means anything to you. And I'm not trying to. Right, I'm not trying.
I feel like I agreed to something that I didn't mean to agree to somewhere along the line, and I'm just trying to figure that out right now.
We can run it back and like go through it again if you'd like, because I'm not trying to. Sorry. I'm not trying to play gotchas, dude. I promise. I'm really just trying to find out what you think.
Yeah, I'm not trying to imply that you did something bad faith. I'm just I don't know. I got frazzled, and now I'm kind of like I've lost my position here.
You got some water nearby? You need to take a drink of water. We'll take a 5 minute.
I do have water.
You want to take a 5-minute break or something? I can give you all the time you need, man.
I need to figure out where I went wrong.
Would you say you're triggered? I'm just fucking. I'm fucking around. I'm just fucking around. I'm fucking around. Man.
No, if I was triggered, you know,
right.
You'd know about it if I was triggered. I'd be like yelling or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Saying something mean.
I'm glad we didn't get that far.
No, I got really. I don't know what I just did. I don't know what the fuck I just did. Your chat better be having fun with this.
No, they're not.
I'm really embarrassed.
They're arguing about like Andy Go and shit. They're completely off topic at this point.
Okay.
They, as per usual, like my chat is a cluster. I think there's like 5 people that are listening, and I think they're mostly lurking.
Oh well.
Yeah. Not to shit on you guys. I'm reading chat and I'm like, okay, we're not. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to explain my position here, but it's difficult because we framed it in such a way that like really threw me off.
Yeah. Would you say it was dishonest?
Not necessarily. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Okay. I'll hang tight.
It's okay. I'm just, yeah. I got to that weird position where I, like, blanked totally.
Yeah, you're good.
And I was thinking of something beforehand and I completely forgot.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask this of you. You don't have to I guess subject yourself to this, but like, would you be interested in just kind of rolling this back a little bit and starting from where maybe we could both agree is the beginning and seeing how we got here?
What was the? Okay.
Is that
so
something...
what?
Sorry.
No, just I'm sorry. I'm like a sloth. I'm really slow.
You're good.
I'm a slow guy.
It's okay.
When I have to like think on my toes, I just kind of like fail. It's just kind of who I am.
You're totally fine, dude. I've struggled with this a lot myself. We can take it slow and low and slow or whatever. We can go super slow.
Yeah.
I just feel like it might be useful at this point. I'm not saying we have to.
I wanna get back to what the last thing you said was, because that's where I'm like thrown off, obviously.
So at this point, I would need to see like a clip just to see what I said actually, because I kind of forget it too.
It was something along the line of like
how far would RPG have to go for you to consider it being worthwhile for you to distance yourself from him? That was the big conversation that we were having.
And also you kind of threw in the dig that like rather than distancing myself from him, I sort of distanced myself from you, even though ideologically we might have more in common, and potentially his ideology may be like dangerous to me or something along those lines.
Yeah, I tried to really stay away from that because that sounds really condescending. And I'm not trying to say that I know him
that's why it really that's why it threw me off. It felt like a really like big gotcha. I felt like I really fell in.
Definitely not trying to like say that in a way that comes off as condescending in any way. It's just like I feel like I'm witnessing like a lot of phenomenons going on right now, and
it's fair. Yeah,
I just feel like I need to point them out. Like, it's not to say that I'm, this sounds so bad. I'm not gonna cite credentials or whatever, but like I did study for psychology for 5 years at university, and there's a lot of like implicit biases and groupthink that might be going on here, and I'm wondering if maybe like. At first, I think when I came into the stream, I came into this like with the idea of like calling it out, but now I'm starting to see that like it might be more productive to just like ask you when you would call it out. Because for me to tell you like what arbitrary barriers or lines I've drawn in the sand are, and especially like which ones you should take up on, probably comes off as extremely condescending. Like, and maybe this is your big issue with the left, is they seem to continuously tell other people where and what they need to censor. And it's like, man, like, I don't even know if I agree with censorship in general. So let's find out, like, do you agree with any form of censorship? Is it possible that an idea could be bad and simultaneously bad and also simultaneously suppress other individuals such that like, it's the fact that like this idea is able to spread in public discourse that like is the problem, so to speak.
I think like probably where I would have like the most censorship, it would be like of corporations. I feel like corporations shouldn't be allowed to like push like blatant disinformation, stuff like that. I don't know if this makes sense. I don't know if I'm going off on like a weird tangent here.
It does. I'm kind of wondering now. Would you say that Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple have their hands sort of their hands dirty in this kind of hypothetical that you're putting forth?
Maybe to some degree, but
okay. Do you think it's like the responsibility of it? Sorry.
I would say more so. I don't feel like they have like a strong message, those companies. Like I feel like they're more on the censorship side of things. Like they just like to censor people.
Oh, you're talking about like Breitbart maybe, or
like who I would censor?
No. Well, yeah, I guess because you said that your issue is more with corporations that are spreading misinformation. So I'm just curious as to like what that looks like.
It would be like ExxonMobil, like you mentioned earlier, would be like a good example. I feel like you shouldn't be able to put out like a blatant propaganda like that. Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna go a little bit like if we go down this line, like we're not going to disagree on anything. I definitely agree with like more regulation for corporations.
Yeah.
None of that is like. I don't want to say this sounds really shitty. If I had like 8,000 viewers right now, I'd feel very comfortable just saying like I don't really care about that. Just because like ultimately this is something you and I probably don't disagree with, and it's something that like we're not going to gain a lot of ground.
Yeah, of course. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. to steer it back a little bit, right? When it comes to like, say for instance, the individual in question. So like we can look at groups, we could look at corporations, we could look at even like political figures and say, hey, they have some pretty bad ideas. Say for instance, David Duke or Steve Bannon. I'd feel pretty comfortable saying, especially somebody like fucking Steve Bannon, like a senior advisor to Trump for I think 2 years. I'm all in favor. No, it's actually just for like 6 months. But either way, like I think he was also his campaign advisor as well. Yeah, he was his campaign advisor, so it was probably a year and a half or 2 years. This is the kind of individual that I would like to see, you know, not have as much power, be it like political or financial, etc. And we could talk about that, but again, like that's something you and I probably don't disagree much on, and it's not really going to serve us too much to the conversation that we were having to talk about them. I'm more interested in talking about like the individuals in question, like somebody like RPG.
But like you mentioned more individuals there. But like, let's just say, like, for the sake of this, we'll say Red Pill is like flat out fascist. I'm not Red Pill if you're watching. I'm not saying, but
yep.
Let's just say for the sake of like this argument that he is. Let's say that his audience is much larger. We'll say like the size of like Destiny or something.
Sure.
So like, is all that you want to do is just like take away his Twitch platform?
No, ultimately I don't have like a normative prescription beyond like individuals like yourself and myself being able to call this sort of thing out and distance ourselves. Am I in favor of RPG not being able to access the internet in any capacity beyond like Google search databases? No, fuck no. I'm calling for sort of a maybe like a societal change or like a call to arms here. Like I don't want to take away his like ability to access the internet. I don't want to take away his ability to access Twitch. He can play Donkey Kong Country all he wants. He can even stream it to an audience. But when he starts injecting things like, hey, by the way, while I'm getting, oh, I just got Diddy Kong back. By the way, we should have 51% of, you know, the country being whites. That's like sort of kind of where it gets a little scary for me. And I'm not saying that he didn't say that directly when he was playing fucking Donkey Kong Country. I'm just saying that like he can do whatever he wants insofar as it's not advocating for white nationalism, right? That's the issue I take with like his behavior, if that makes sense.
Okay, so are you saying that like the action should be on us as individuals to distance ourselves from that?
To call them out and to sort of
okay.
But I used the word wedge earlier. I don't know if that seemed like too extreme for you. I'm trying to watch my language here really quickly.
I think I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Because I don't want you to think that I'm like in favor of throwing milkshakes at him outside or beating him up with a baseball bat. Like I'm not saying we should do these things. I want to make that very clear. I don't know if you got that.
But that's it though. Like if I rather than like if I just like left his Discord and, like when he did a stream I was combative towards him or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what you're asking of me. I mean, I know you're not formally asking that of me, but like,
yeah,
you know, if you could ask something of me, that would be what you would ask.
Well, firstly, before I even advocate for something like that, I would need to find out what you agree or what you believe. Because if you believe or agree with a lot of the positions that he holds concerning ethno-nationalism or how he views like immigration and like the way that economics needs to play a role in society, like if you agree with these things, then I wouldn't say that you should distance yourself from him. I would then take issue with the things that you agree with him on, and then I wouldn't distance myself from you. I'd be interested in having a conversation about that and, you know, exploring, say, for instance, the stats or the facts behind these issues and see if the phenomenon that he espouses and that you would also likewise espouse are anything like worth, like if they're credible at all. This is where like you said that some well, you didn't say publishers, but this is where like I agree with you that some media outlets need to be held accountable here, because like when Breitbart says something like immigrants are ruining the country, and then you look and then like the greater half of the last 30 years, for the greater half of the last 30 to 40 years, 2/3 of our economy has been booming because of immigration, largely. You can demonstrate that like these things are just fundamentally untrue. Now, again, I'm saying RPG is somebody who I'd have to disagree with on that ground, because like him and I have two totally different worlds that we see. But I think you might like actually recognize that like, in fact, there's a lot of good that immigration comes or brings with it. We probably don't need to lock up shop and like cut off all forms of immigration for the next 20, 30, 40, 100, 150, 200 years. You don't really have a problem with brown people. You don't have a problem with black people. You don't see black people as innately genetically predisposed to committing more crime. I think anyway. I don't know these things, right? I'm just
No,
assuming.
I don't. You're
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, and because you don't think those things, right? I don't need to sit here and say to you like, oh, like, you know, fuck you, or you know, you suck, or any of those sorts of things. And I don't even say those things to RPG, for the record, right? What I'm more interested in doing is having a conversation about the facts, and then if somebody is unable to change their position once the facts are presented, then it's like, you know, inquiring why. Like, that's where it gets into, like, if I were to have a conversation with RPG about this, and I brought up a bunch of statistics that show that immigration has largely benefited our economy, and that, like, there may be some small, like, very, very medial or nominal changes that we could make to the system to make it better, but, like, none even remotely come close to the sort of ethno state that he's advocating for. If I had that conversation with him and he still maintained that position, well, first we would come to some consensus of truth, right? I would try to probably I would probably try to show a bunch of stats and studies that show my point of view. I would hope that he would be able to do the same. If he was unable to substantiate his points and I was able to substantiate mine, then I would ask him to change his position. If he didn't, I would ask why. If he said he was stubborn or he just doesn't feel that way, I would say that he's arguing bad faith. And then at that point, I would ask somebody like you for some sort of consistency here in the individuals that you know, consider your friends. It's like, okay, like, you know, you're friends with somebody who, I haven't had that debate with RPG yet, so I don't know if he actually has some sort of alternate reality or worldview that he looks at, but assuming everything I've seen from leading economists to the studies that I've seen from, like, the Stanford Open Policing Project, it seems to be the case that, yeah, actually, largely speaking, institutional racism is still a thing. Seems like immigration is actually benefiting our economy. Seems like most of the sort of disagreements that I may have with somebody like RPG are disagreements from his feelings and my facts. And I'm just kind of like wondering, you know, how do we see the world so differently? So that's the conversation I want to have with him. And then when it comes to somebody like you, who, again, I haven't had that conversation with RPG yet, so it's hard for me to, like, ask this of you whole scale, but, like, maybe consider, like, hey, you know, I disagree with him on a lot of things. The next time I conversate with him, why don't I try to come to some consensus of truth and ask him to change his position, or, like, wonder why he's so devout to his position in the face of facts? I don't know if that makes sense. I talked for a long time there, sorry.
Yeah, that is the bad thing about me being so passive, is that it ends up being a lot to take in.
It was a lot for me to regurgitate, so I'm sure I stumbled over my own words there a little bit, but...
No, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's just, well, I don't even know what to say, really.
Like you said, you said that you like to ascribe yourself the label of, like, liberal back in the day, right? Maybe you'd say you're, like, a classical liberal or something.
I never really liked the term classical liberal, because
Okay.
I feel like that has, like, implications that I don't like.
Yeah, I guess for, like, a primer for whatever conversation RPG inevitably tries to reach out after he unblocks me on Discord, after he realizes that he has me blocked on Discord and I can't respond to him because he's probably listening to this conversation in some capacity, be it now or in the future. I can talk to him more probably scrupulously about this topic, but I'm just, as a primer, like, what are your thoughts on immigration? Do you think that we should, you know, try to maintain some sort of ethno-majority? Do you think that immigration comes with a lot of benefits? Do you think there's any negatives? What are those negatives? What are the benefits that you think? You know, I'm just, like, what do you think about immigration?
I'm not really, like, I don't really care about holding an ethno-majority. I think it, like, it's obviously beneficial to the majority to be a majority. I think that's kind of a no-brainer, because, like, as soon as you become the minority, there's going to be discrimination. That's just kind of how it works. That's just how human beings work.
Yeah,
I think that's largely why the sort of alt-right dudes kind of hold to, like, an ethno state kind of ideal.
Yeah.
Just because they don't want that to happen to them.
Yeah.
Which, like, I can't really hate on them for that. Like, I understand. I don't exactly want it to happen to myself either.
Well, I just want to be clear, like, you recognize the danger of, I guess,
an ethno state as an ideal. Yes,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah. And like, when somebody says they
yeah.
want a 51% white America, even if that doesn't necessarily bode bad tidings for somebody like you, because maybe you're white, maybe you're straight, maybe you're, you know, largely unaffected by what Nazis take issue with, like, you have some amount of sympathy for individuals that are literally anything but you, be them female,
of course.
Be them female that are white, be them females that are black, be them males that are black, be them non-binary people, in general, be them white or otherwise. Literally every category of individual is, like, largely discriminated against or has been largely discriminated against by, you know, Nazis or fascists, really, except for the version that they idealize, like the Aryans, I guess. Like if you're not this particular type of individual, they kind of largely don't want you in their society.
Well, I think just, we're kind of veering off. Like we're going between like red pill's like 51% thing and like straight up fascism. Pretty.
Whoa, wait, you don't think that's fascist to advocate for an ethno majority?
It's I'm sure it's somewhat fascist, but like you're automatically ascribing like homophobia, transphobia, and all this other stuff.
I'm not automatically assuming it. I'm just looking up the jokes that I saw from their Discord. And
yeah, well, those are jokes.
Well,
like the trans people in my Discord make more offensive transphobia jokes than I've seen in Red Pill's Discord.
Yeah, and there's a lot of disagreements that I might have with people of their own group or culture or ethnicity making these sorts of jokes about themselves pejoratively as well. But there is some amount of like, I think you and I can both recognize that there might be some amount of like reclamation that gay or black or Jewish people may be using when they're using slurs against themselves versus like when somebody who's white is joking about them, like these particular groups of people, especially these groups of oppressed people in private, right? Like it looks way different to find out that like two black people are saying in a public Discord like, yo, what up? And then,
I don't want to get into the jokes thing again. I feel like we're going to just run ourselves in circles there.
Fair enough. Yeah, we can drop that. I
just for the sake of it, can we like try to stick to things that he's actually said if we're going to talk about him?
Sure, yeah. So the ethno-majority thing, again, I just want to really stress, like, you don't see somebody advocating for a 51% ethno-majority in the United States as a form of far-right authoritarian.
I was purely trying to say that like we can't ascribe a lot of other things to that, like automatically.
So all I want to do is just call that fascist. And when I say I want to do that, it's not because I like hate him. It's I don't hate him and want to call him that. I'm looking at the definition of the term, and I'm not seeing how this is anything but that.
I was taking issue with the other things you were adding, not so much the wording. It was just the fact that you were saying like you were like white people who are female. I don't think white people who are female are going to have a real issue in the white ethnic state.
Wait,
it just doesn't seem.
Wait,
well, what issues are they going to have?
Nazi treatment of women?
We're not talking about Nazis. We're talking about like modern American, like white ethno state.
Is it fair? You're gonna say no, but like I want to just refer back to some of these sexist jokes because I think it was Ventura shared quite a healthy number of, well, I would say unhealthy, but like he shared a swath of jokes that not only were bigoted against women, like the two genders, the kitchen and then the man part, like that's not only offensive to women and probably indicative of some sort of societal system of oppression that he would use against women if he ever got in power, but also against trans people and LGBTQIA plus people, right?
I have no idea.
Really?
I don't know how to get that from a joke. I would have to talk to them about that kind of stuff.
Shit, I even had a brief conversation on Twitter with the guy that shared that meme that said that they had some opinions on the 1 in 4 college rape statistic. Let me see if I can't find it. See if this is something that you agree with, disagree with. Was it Ventura or was it Mbonga?
I remember Ventura on Twitter saying that he would arm the women.
Oh yeah, that's right. Fuck, I can't find him in my mentions. Shit, I can't find it. I guess all I wanted to say is that like women in societies that like women have had largely the longest stretch of oppression of any group of individuals, if we're not talking about like blacks, I think, and even that is somewhat contentious. We've seen this in very authoritative, or sorry, we've seen this in very nationalist, very fascist communities all the time, a la Nazi Germany, a la Benito Mussolini's Italy. To a large extent, we saw this in like Stalin's, although it wasn't nationalism, I don't think, or no, I think there was a large nationalist movement in under Stalin's regime. So yeah, I would say we saw this in Stalin's Russia. Like, whenever there's fascism, it seems to be that like everybody other than the idealized group is oppressed. Would you agree or disagree with that? Or do you still hold the position that like women in Nazi Germany would not, or well, women in a white ethno state in America would not be oppressed? White women specifically, sorry.
It's we're ascribing so much stuff that's like not being mentioned. It's just hard for me to like put it together.
Okay, so I could just use DBO as an example. You know who DBO is, right?
Yes.
DBO largely...
He's in my chat right now.
Oh, sweet. So DBR largely defends Nick Fuentes, saying that he's not a Nazi. Nick Fuentes has said before that he very much wants women in the household, not working jobs, being able to produce children, and not being able to do much else. Kind of like largely restricting their political freedoms. I think...
DBO, do you want that enforced by the state?
Do you just want that not even enforced by the state? Do you just want something like that to be recognized in society? Like what is basically...
culturally and...
Yeah, like basically
sort of
what
culturally reinforced.
Yeah, I guess my biggest question would be like, what is DBO's idealized society look like for women in said society? Like, what should women be allowed to do in his idealized society? And I also don't even really want to ask him that question because it's very easy for DBO to be. DBO's been dishonest about this kind of stuff before. I asked him what he thought about, like, you know, I guess I asked him what his his death toll on the Holocaust was, because he was like skirting around it, and he said just whatever you want it to be. It's 6 to 8 million. Eventually, like, he kind of gave up on the conversation, just said like it's whatever you want it to be. So I feel like DBO is probably not going to be super honest about these sorts of things. But I'm sure he's in your chat right now saying, oh, I don't hate women. I want them to have the same rights as men, etc. I just go by like the memes and the sort of like things that they say to their friends in private, I guess, because that seems to probably allude more to their true nature rather than what they say to my face, somebody who they very much hate, probably want to see locked up if, you know, they ever reach their idealized society. And yeah.
God.
Yeah, I know. It probably seems like I'm reaching. Again, I could ask it to DBO's face. DBO, I'm pansexual, right? I have zero problems having sex with a man. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think about, you know, gay people in your society?
What are your thoughts on that, DBO?
Yeah.
Within TOS.
Yeah.
Use TOS friendly language.
I just want to be abundantly clear. Like, it's so easy for somebody like DBO to lie about these sorts of things now. I'll just wait until, like, you know, I'll just wait until the next big Discord link or leak. Hopefully not by DBO himself. Some people in my chat were saying DBO was the leaker. That's kind of interesting.
I saw that. I'm sure that was probably a joke.
Maybe, yeah, hopefully.
It would be kind of funny if DBO was the leaker, though, wouldn't it?
It would be.
You would never expect. That'd be the last person you'd expect. No, it was Red Pill. He leaked it himself. His grift game was 100.
He's really fucking grifting if that's the case.
Well, wouldn't that be epic, though?
That would be... I will say this. That would be the ultimate troll. If this is, like, one big waste of time. Like, if instead of doing all this, I could be doing something else. But, like, it's all... I'm just a fucking puppet of RPG. I'll give you that. If you're doing all that, then hats off to you, sir. Somehow...
That would destroy my brain. I think I would have a fucking meltdown if that turned out to be the truth.
It'd be pretty fucking nuts, no doubt.
I would probably laugh for like a full 24 hours.
Yeah. I just want to be clear though, like, would you say that the bar for racism for you is somebody explicitly stating, I believe X, which is X is like racist, homophobic?
Well, no, I mean, of course, I have to be reasonable. Like, you can't... It's got to be more than that, or else anybody would have a loophole where they could instantly just say they weren't racist and not be racist.
Yeah. And again, just to be clear, like, I've seen the memes. DBO, if in his idealized society, like, would either want me dead or want me, like, deported. There would be no place for somebody like myself in DBO society. And maybe you. I don't know that for sure, but, like, fuck, man. Like, just for associating with somebody like myself and maybe seeing my perspective or whatever might oust you as some sort of traitor in these sorts of groups. And maybe this seems like really extreme, like, dude, you don't even know what we're talking about, like, none of this is happening. But I just want to really stress, like, you know, I'm reading the logs, I'm reading what they don't want me to see, and I don't know, I'm just questioning this shit, that's all. I'm just wondering, you know.
Where is DBO? DBO, where are you? Do you want Wired dead? Yes or no?
Again, it's like, man, I don't even really...
For his sexuality and like serious answer.
It's something he could just so easily say. I don't. That it's like, what's?
I know.
And again,
I'll give you that.
And would you also be willing to give me that, like, you know, there are at least 3 to 4 images that I have that would, like, you know, probably imply that he has some sort of bias against gay people, some sort of bias against trans people, some sort of bias against black people, some sort of bias against Jewish people. Would you acknowledge that at least, maybe?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know these guys that well.
Yeah. Well, again, though, like you're in their private Discord server and you
I know.
interact with them to
I
some
know I'm
extent.
in there.
You know, they're in your chat. They're not mine, right? And I guess that's maybe because we're talking about them. But like, you know, these are.
Well, it's because I'll allow them to be here as well.
Yeah, and hey, just again to be clear, this doesn't have to come down to like literally squashing these people into the ground. They need to go to like re-education camps, or we need to force them to change their mind through some sort of like Clockwork Orange 8-hour day rehabilitation center where we glue their eyes to the back of their heads and force them to watch I don't know, Help Me or The Color of Friendship on repeat. This doesn't have to come to that. I'm literally just like I just want to, you know. Really, again, to go back way to the start of this conversation, I would just prefer it if people like this would be intellectually honest in their conversations, right? If DBO just came out and said, "Hey, I do think Jews are controlling the media," that would be so much easier for me to like talk to him about than for him to sit here and say like, "No, I don't think these things, but," or "No, like I'm not saying 6 million Jews didn't die in the Holocaust, but if you check this plaque, it's like maybe it was 4 million," or you know, these sorts of things. I just want truth, like. That's at the end of the day, like that's where I take huge issue with is when people are allowed to lie, like you said, right? Breitbart, or if it wasn't Breitbart, maybe you take issue with BuzzFeed or any of the like maybe far lefty, like Al Jazeera. Like
I didn't really mean like companies. I was more. I meant more along the lines of like large corporations who are using the propaganda purely to like fuel their company.
Yeah, and maybe this is too much of a leap here for you, but like you acknowledge that whereas DBO and RPG are engaging in this now, like in the grifty small scale sense, if RPG was ever put into like a position of power, say for instance of like the New York Post or like the Washington Examiner, I think, or no, not the Washington Examiner. Like if RPG ever got access to Breitbart, you don't think that he would continue to push this sort of propaganda, or you think he'd like, oh, now that I have power, I need to be intellectually honest and not say that Jews are actually controlling the world. Like I can't say all that stuff because I have to stick to the truth here. Or do you think that he would probably still continue to push these ideas because these are actually things that he believes?
Is he pushing these ideas?
It's a 51% ethno-majority in the United States.
But you just said a bunch of other stuff, though. I'm getting like, confused.
Jewish question, the cabal, of, you know, yeah.
I mean, I guess he would push his beliefs if he was in control of a media company. Yeah.
So the only fundamental difference between somebody like RPG and Breitbart is the level of power that they have access to, right? We acknowledge that?
Sure, I guess.
Whereas RPG...
If I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, Breitbart's doing it right now with a fair amount of intellectual dishonesty. RPG would be doing it if he was in the same position as, like, what the fuck's the dude named that? Steve Banner, right? He was, like, chief editor of Breitbart for a while.
I don't think he's involved with it anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. Who owns Breitbart? Fuck. Larry Solov and Andrew... along with Andrew Breitbart's widow, Susie Breitbart, and the Mercer family, and the CEO, while Alex Marlowe is the editor-in-chief. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, the only difference between somebody, it sounds like we're both kind of agreeing on, it sounds like the only difference between somebody like RPG and Larry Solov is the fact that RPG does not have that kind of power. Or are we getting there, or do you disagree with that?
I don't even know, man. I don't know at this point.
Fuck. All right. I can see I tried so hard, but I feel like I feel like you think that I kind of railroaded in this conversation. That was not my intent. So
it's all right. I mean, like this is what happens to me every time.
Yeah. I know you said it.
I'm sure a couple people in my chat remember when I had a debate with Tiger Joe or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know.
It was pretty much the same thing. I'm not a debate guy. It's weird. Like it just always goes this way.
Yeah. No, I understand. Shit. I don't know. I feel like we're at a bit of an impasse here, where it's like
I'm feeling it too.
Yeah. I don't want to sit here and say that like you're being dishonest or anything like that, but it just feels like the sorts of leaps that I'm trying to make here, which I see as very much like moderate, like very controlled, very like, you know, to any like basic behavioral psychologist, like they would be willing to say, oh yeah, it's very possible, or it's like maybe even likely. It seems like you and I are kind of unable to make these leaps, and that's okay. I'm not saying that you're a terrible person or that I want you dead for those sorts of things. It just feels like
I can explain if you want.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, absolutely.
Before I do explain, I just want to point out that like this whole discussion kind of played out like the freaking like SpongeBob and Patrick meme thing, where the guy's like, he's like, so this is this, right, and this is this, but then also this is this. And Patrick's.
Is he like, oh no, my name's
dumbass Patrick? No, I'm joking. Maybe people don't know them.
No, I think you're talking about the no, my name is Patrick.
What was I going to explain? I was going to explain why it seems like I think there was kind of an implication that you think I'm possibly being like a tiny bit dishonest.
Maybe just like a tiny bit. I don't know. Just very tiny bit. I really don't think that you're... Sorry.
It's fine. You could say that you flat out think I'm being very dishonest. That's okay.
I genuinely don't think that. This conversation is
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. This conversation has been a failure if you think that I think that you were being dishonest this entire time. I do not think you're being dishonest, genuinely speaking.
Okay, I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Shit, what was I gonna say?
Fuck, I did it again. God damn it. Sorry, dude.
No, I got this. Don't worry, I got this.
I'm gonna shut up.
What I was gonna say is like the reason I'm having trouble with some of this is I feel like there's implications that I'm not able to consider like off the top of my head, if that makes sense. And like
say that one more time.
I feel like I'm being asked to kind of agree with a lot of things that I might agree with, but I'm not 100% sure the implications of what I'm agreeing with. And I don't want to agree with like something that I don't agree with. So, you know, like you kind of get what I'm saying?
I do.
I'm getting twisted up where I'm like, I'm not 100% sure the implication of some of these things that we're saying.
I got it. Yeah. So check this out. This is what I think is going on, right? Because I do not think you're being dishonest. What I think is going on is I am talking to somebody who is politically inclined to some extent, but not to the extent to which maybe part of their online friend group is, right? You probably don't care about politics nearly as much as somebody like RPG does. Do you think that's fair to say?
I don't.
Okay, yeah. Sweet.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So when RPG says things like this, and you guys, I don't know how you guys became friends. Maybe it was over Donkey Kong Country Love or something like that. I don't know. But at some point in time, you and him formed a friendship over some mutual agreement on something, be it a video game, be it just happenstance of running into people on the internet. I don't know. And then into your guys' friendship, no matter how early it was, you were aware, or were made aware rather, that he holds certain beliefs related to politics. You probably yourself, again, don't share a lot of his political positions, but you see his right to voicing these as like fundamentally core to something like free speech, which is something that, like, no matter how much you really don't care about politics, you probably really love free speech at the very least, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So you have some like very, I don't want to say basic, actually, that's dickish. You have some very fundamental political axioms that you very much value, and you see somebody like RPG, or if RPG is a bad example because he's kind of unknown, maybe you see somebody like Tommy Robinson, or a lot of the media that you consume, be it on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You see individuals kind of coming under fire or coming under attack in that very, again, not basic, but like fundamental thing that you care about. And again, this sounds loaded. I don't mean for this to be loaded, but rather than like investigating the super nuance of those situations, or it's not even really super nuanced, but I'm trying to be charitable both sides here. Rather than like investigating the situation deeply, like spending, say, for instance, 2, 3, 4 hours a day reading the news, you know, catching up on things and trying to understand like deep phenomenons like the impacts of immigration on, you know, the American economy, you're more interested in just like making sure that everybody's voice is able to be heard, right?
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense at least.
Yeah, like you don't really care too much about these issues at their core. What you care about is just making sure that like some very basic fundamental political axioms of yours are realized. Like,
it's not that I don't care, it's just a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah, I shouldn't have said you don't care.
It's a lot.
You don't care is a bit of a pejorative. I don't mean to say that. What I meant to say was just that there's a lot of shit going on with politics that for somebody working, say, for instance, a 40-hour-a-week job with a girlfriend and, I don't know, some side hobbies and video games, somebody like you not, that sounds really bad. I'm not saying somebody like you in a bad way. I just mean like somebody that has a lot of shit on their plate can't really pay. They don't, there's not like enough time afforded in the day to care about these things to the extent to which like political scientists or economists do, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so when somebody like RPG, who does care about these things to an extent that is maybe greater slightly than your own, or maybe moderately slightly than your own, like you said yourself that he's probably more politically inclined than somebody like you, right?
I would say so, yeah.
So when somebody like him, sorry,
I would refer to him as sort of a culture warrior.
Cultural.
If you know that term.
I do. Promise me you'll tell him that to his face, or maybe you already have.
Oh, I mean, I just said it live on. So
National Twitch.tv. Yeah, no, I'm just fucking around. No, yeah. So like, where somebody like RPG is probably a little bit more politically inclined on these issues and has not only a friendship with you or like a buddyship with you, but definitely some more visceral and very heated takes in the political scheme or gambit, if you will. You view him being deplatformed by Twitch once or twice, right? How many? I don't know how many.
Three. I think it was three.
So you see him being deplatformed by Twitch 3 times now. At least one being a perma, and a lot of the political
all
left.
Three.
All three. Okay. All three. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate the honesty. So again, you see somebody like RPG's free speech being under attack by the political left at large, the political Twitch left at large, and then I don't even want to say at large. I don't know if that many people really know about him. No offense. I just mean that like I doubt that like I know Mindwaves knows about him, but I doubt people like Pixie or Amy3 or Cormentine really know or care about him. But the political Twitch left of some moderate amount pushing back against his ideas in unison, as well as Twitch banning him 3 times all permad. For things that you see as, again, just his right to free speech, his right to voice that he prefers an ethno-majority in the United States. Like, you see his sort of right to saying that is more important than whatever mumbo-jumbo political nuance we could get into. Would that be fair? Do you think that's like maybe a fair character, or as fair as we can get here?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's... For the record, I don't think that's why he was banned. I don't think it was for his like nationalistic views.
Oh, I don't know either.
At least
I've asked him.
I haven't seen evidence of that. At least.
I've asked him 3 times, and every single time he says, "Oh, you didn't read the document," as though I have access to his fucking emails, right? Although, no, I'm just fucking around. No, but like he'll say that sort of thing, and then I'll be like, well, yeah, like tell me what happened, and then he'll just keep saying like, oh, you don't know what happened? Oh, you don't know what happened? Oh, you don't like. So I can't get a clear answer out of him. I assume it's because of the white nationalism, I assume it's because the ethno-majority preference of the demographic of the United States. I assume it has something to do with these sorts of things, but I can't know for sure. But that's largely irrelevant to my point, which is that you probably value his right to saying what he says more than whatever political jargon follows afterwards about the disagreements that people have with him. But do you think that's fair? Again, I don't think you're dishonest. I'm not trying to paint you in a bad light.
Yeah, no, like, of course, I value free speech very highly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then again, like, rather than getting into like the political, in air quotes, the political jargon, so to speak, of like, the impacts that immigration really does have on the economy, or say, for instance, like how black people are largely discriminated against in certain institutions that we have in the United States. Rather than getting into all of that, it's much more integral to your beliefs as not shallow, as sort of like cursory as they may be. It's much more integral to, in your opinion, that RPG at least be able to voice these opinions, because regardless of whether or not he has very bad takes, and I say regardless, meaning that wholeheartedly, it sounds like you largely don't really know or care that much about like him seeing an idealized version of society. You mostly care about him being able to at least say these things, right?
I have a much bigger problem with a large group or even a corporation censoring an individual rather than him like putting out what is, his views are a minority. He's in the minority. With his...
Well, in the minority of what? Of terrorism in the United States? Because they're absolutely in the majority there. Well, I'm just saying, white nationalism made up 73% of violent extremist attacks in 2017. When you say he's in the minority, I'm just curious. Like, In an absolute,
He's strictly the minority.
yeah, in absolute numbers, is white nationalism a majority or minority in the United States? I would agree with you. It's in the minority. Is it growing at unprecedented rates? Yes. Does it constitute does it constitute not only the plurality but the majority, and the overwhelming majority at that, of political violence that's happened within the last 18 years? Absolutely. But yeah, if you're sorry.
Why do you think it's growing?
That gets into kind of a different conversation. Well, it's not really. I think it's growing largely because of, again, figures like Steve Bannon and figures kind of like RPG. Again, I really do think that, like, this can sound like a pejorative. I don't mean for it to. I think people like RPG are really just like useful idiots. Like, he probably has 2 or 3 news outlets. One of them may or may not be InfoWars, that he largely pays attention to, and he kind of throws everything else under the bus. He does have some talking points, or I guess some data behind what he says, but I think for the most part he's just kind of speaking out of the narratives that he eats up. And a lot of the data that a lot of the small amount of data that he has is, like, very, very largely dishonest. So if you were wondering to me, like, why white nationalism is on the rise, I would say it's because primarily of certain media outlets and certain certain political figures, I'll just say, that spread some very toxic ideas.
Okay, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, how do I exactly word this?
Sure.
You don't think that maybe, like, they might have some fears that, like, are in some way kind of, like, reinforced by reality, or maybe, like, by, like, other political groups that are sort of against them?
Nice.
Maybe, like,
elaborate on that.
You know, like, maybe, like, the further left groups are, like, kind of seeing a rise in the media. Maybe some of that media is very, like, seemingly anti-white or something. So they're kind of, like, afraid of becoming a minority because obviously they're going to be mistreated if they're a minority.
If you're asking me now to defend BuzzFeed, I can't do it, man. I fucking hate BuzzFeed so goddamn much.
I don't want you to.
I know. I will never defend BuzzFeed. Like, I promise you, I fucking hate BuzzFeed too. Get them out. Get BuzzFeed out. Get goddamn get Breitbart out. Get all that nonsense out of here. Okay. I think there's real conversations to be. Sorry.
Do you want my deep conspiracy on that?
I don't hate Jewish people, man. I'm just gonna tell you that right
now.
No.
It's not a Jewish.
All right.
I promise it's not a Jewish.
All right. Just
this is a really deep one. This is a really deep conspiracy. I think I
love black people too. Okay, man. Like
it's not racial.
Okay.
Damn it.
All right.
It's not racial at all. Right. No race.
No TOS. No TOS. Okay.
Or sexualities.
Is what?
It's Oh my god. See, you fucked me up now.
I'm sorry.
No. Okay. I honestly, I don't believe this exactly, but, you know, it pops into my head a lot when I'm thinking about this kind of stuff. Don't you think it would be funny if it turned out that the left-wing media was owned by, like, a larger, like, right-wing sort of group?
Dude, this isn't even really a conspiracy. You probably think
it's not a conspiracy.
So CSNBC or CBS. What do you probably think those are, like, maybe left-leaning? Left-leaning news outlets, maybe?
We'll just say that, like, they have, like, some stuff that considered that one.
Yeah, and maybe they're like center-left or left-leaning, maybe a little bit, or like liberal, we could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are largely, I don't even want to say largely, I think those are completely owned by a broadcasting group known as Sinclair. And, I mean, they call themselves a diversified media company and leading provider of local sports and news. But there's some people that, I don't know, man. Either they're in power at Sinclair or what. That, like, I've got some weird, like, you've probably seen these videos on Facebook if you have a Facebook. But Sinclair's Army. You can look at this in your own time if you'd like. This is from, again, like, largely Sinclair broadcasting corporations that a lot of this shit came from. And I don't know, it continues to spread. I don't really watch TV news anymore, anyways. But yeah, I could probably agree with you that to some extent, not even to some extent, to a large extent, the media plays a role in this. And is that liberal media? Could be. Absolutely could be. I'm not a huge fan of CNN either, if that makes you feel any better.
Yeah. No, it's something that I always just feel like it doesn't feel as much like there's two groups that are, like, pulling people apart. It feels like there's one group that's people apart. And I know how that sounds. not the Jews. I just need to be very strict. It's not the Jews, in my opinion.
I'm getting fucking taken down after this shit.
I know.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
That's so bad. If you talk about like, you know what I mean though, like.
No,
if you talk about there being, like,
don't, please, no. I don't want to get into that, please. People have been banned over this. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it, man.
I'm saying that it's not that though. Like, I'm just saying, like, it sucks that you can't talk about it without people assuming that. Like, there's no way. Like, it always sounds like you're talking about that. You get what I mean?
It's just like
we'll let it die.
All right. That's a good idea.
I don't want to get banned either.
Yeah, for the record, I don't think you're a neo-Nazi. I don't think you're a white nationalist. I hope that you don't think that I'm a white nationalist or a neo-Nazi that hates Jews either. I really don't want to talk about.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to talk about that, and I don't think you would do either. So, yeah. And I mean that genuinely. Like I don't just want to not talk about that on stream and then message you in private and be like, man, those fucking I hate them. They own the media. No, like I'm not interested in entertaining that conspiracy theory. I have some problems with Israel and how they're trying to mostly imperialize the fuck out of I think Gaza and the West Bank. But like that's criticisms of Israel. That's not criticisms of a Jewish conspiracy.
Of course.
Yeah. But even we can't talk about that. It's just not even like productive whatsoever. Yeah. Fuck. I will agree with you. I do think the media plays a big role in shaping people's opinions, and I think that the fact that white nationalism is on the rise in the United States is proof of some sort of failing in that channel of information.
Definitely.
Nice.
I almost feel like it's almost purely. I mean, it's not purely the media, but I feel like it's a large degree the media. Possibly social media as well. I feel like there's definitely something going on there, and I'm not sure what the goal or whatever is, but there's definitely something going on.
All right, yeah. Like I said, like I don't want to ascribe a percentage to it. I do think that there is a problem with the media. I acknowledge that. Reading too much deeper gets you into some scary territory. It's not something I'm interested in.
Of course.
Hey, no disrespect to you though. If you want to talk about the media being hazardous on your own time, as long as you're not doing about Jews, I don't have any issue with it. I
promise you it will never be about Jews.
Right. I appreciate that. Fuck. What do you think? Was this a good conversation?
At least partially, for sure. Like I think we resolved a couple things at least.
Yeah, I think we went over mostly everything I wanted to. Sorry.
I think there's probably some big things involved, but you probably expected them.
Expected what? Sorry.
That we wouldn't resolve everything. Like there'd be certain things that we'd have a hard time sort of coming together on.
You and I?
Yeah.
Bring them up. Bring up one of them. Let's hear it. You might find that I'm very amicable, so I'm actually very curious to see like what you think we might fundamentally disagree on always.
I guess just like the measures that I should be taking is like a big thing.
Yeah.
Like we don't agree on what measures I should be taking in this particular circumstance.
It's both
also,
of us.
Like,
let's be clear. It's not just you. I hold myself accountable here too, right? Like I am not.
Okay, sure.
I'm not just trying to hold authority over you. This has nothing to do with authority. Purely with like suggestion and I guess what you would call, or not what you would call, like what I would call like praxis or something. I don't want like somebody like RPG's fucking freedoms to be restricted to the point where like he's forced to sit down at a chair every day and again like have his eyes glued back to his head and like watch media or anything. Nothing authoritatively. I'm just calling for like I guess a bit of like societal change here, and that starts with people on the internet, I guess, because I don't go outside.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like in a way, I guess I agree with that.
Yeah, but
it's just
you're saying the bar for entry that necessitates change for you is not the same as myself, and I would agree there. We talked about this though.
I think maybe at first we had a bit of a standing on that because it's like you pointed out, I'm not as political. Yeah. So it's a bit different for me because like if I were more political, it would be something that like constantly nagged at me in the back of my head, right?
Yeah.
It would be something that I'd have to deal with immediately.
Well, just to be clear, like, having a joke about like Black Monopoly, where the butt end is that like every space is that you go to jail. and you know, the sort of underlying tacit implication here being that like black people go to jail often, or that they're maybe genetically disposed to committing more crime, or that it's their culture is the entirety of the issue and that it has nothing to do with society whatsoever, kind of giving them a raw dog. Like when it comes to those sorts of jokes, I would say that you and I actually largely agree if I was like 6 years younger, because or five, because like I used to find shit like that like really funny, because and again, like maybe you could call me a fun killer, or like I'm a joy killer or whatever, but like I didn't really read into the jokes. I didn't recognize the humor in them, or like what it was that I was laughing at. I just kind of like instinctively laughed because like, you know, it was just like, oh haha. I didn't think about the joke, or like the, you know, the long-reaching implications of what sharing jokes like that or memes like that could be, you know.
That's actually what I thought this entire like discussion was going to be about. I thought you were going to link me on like stats about how jokes lead directly to terrorism or something like that.
I don't know about like terrorism being a direct link, but I mean, fuck, again, like I'm very much into behavioral psychology, and I think was it like a month or two ago at this point that Destiny got in a similar issue with? If you probably know who Destiny is.
Is it the whole N-word thing?
Yeah, the inward and private stuff.
Yeah,
I was doing a bit of research on that earlier. If you'd like, I don't know what would sell you on this, but like if you'd like, I could hit you up like tomorrow or the next day with some studies that demonstrate that like language plays a pretty vital role in shaping our opinions. And you know, they wouldn't just be like some articles or some shit, but like legitimate studies that, you know, I don't know if they'd be double blind, but I will say that there is definitely a phenomenon behind the language that we normalize and homogenize in our daily life, and what sort of implications that may behold in other avenues of our life. So if you say inward pretty often in your daily life, be it in your friend groups or your workplace, you're probably going to be prone, we'll say, to using it more liberally at the home space, if that makes sense, or like when you're hanging out with somebody that you haven't seen in a while. Like in some avenues of your life, if you're very comfortable doing one thing, there's pretty good suggestion to assume that that one thing might bleed into other avenues of your life. But that's like that's the general phenomenon. I don't think you probably disagree with that. To get into specifically like the language and use of jokes that are offensive or edgy would require a different avenue, but like we could go over that sometime else if you'd like.
My fucking chat is spamming fucking noises at me now.
Are they donating, or what's going on?
No, it's I have a bot that like has sound alerts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Fucking playing a song. I mean, he's trying to get me dancing.
Thanks, fucking dude.
Mid-sentence. Oh my god. Yeah, sure. I'll look at the study. If it's no trouble.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I'll definitely take a look.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, if you'd like, we could do that like tomorrow or something like that. I would have to like kind of dig a little bit because I didn't save them to my Google Drive. I recently started taking notes on the research and I wasn't doing that when I was researching this shit because it was like over a month ago at this point. But,
I mean, no rush. It's all fine.
Right? Yeah. I'm just curious, like, if I were able to substantiate some evidence that, like, offensive or edgy humor could, in fact, well, it wouldn't be that, like, clear cut, but I think the studies that I've looked into mostly look into language and how language use can affect and impact other avenues of our life. Like, would I guess scientific data being shown in this field, like, would it at least call some amount of, like, action in your brain? Like, oh, maybe in face of a study like this, I should either change my behavior or I should look into the study more and see whether or not it's wrong on some things, or if it misses the point of what RPG is doing in his Discord. Yeah, I guess like
I would definitely have to like consider like what I'm doing and what I'm saying and stuff like that a little bit at least.
Yeah.
And, yeah, of course I would want to double check the study or whatever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's multiple studies, but yeah, I would I've always said this. If somebody is willing to have their mind changed, especially in the face of data, I'm absolutely willing to conversate with them. So, for sure. Like I said, dude, if you want to talk tomorrow or the next day even, fuck, that's Friday. If you want to talk tomorrow or sometime next week, I'm definitely down to have a conversation like this, or I don't know. At some point in the very near future, I would be very happy to have a conversation about specifically the use of language and how it can affect parts of our subconscious and our unconscious mind to depart values that maybe we don't internally hold, like us consciously, but like subconscious. Like this is the concept of a Freudian slip, right? To some extent, where you can, as an interlocutor in a conversation, perhaps make an unintentional error that is actually regarded to reveal your subconscious feelings in language. So like, whereas I might talk to you, perfect analogy. If I was talking to you 5 years ago in Dota and you fucked up a play, like in League, like you were playing a Mumu and you like were supposed to flash ulti their entire team, and you fucked that up somehow, like your flash button you thought was on D but it was on F, and so what you ended up doing was like smiting a creep, and you missed the you know what I'm saying, like you've missed the flash ulti. I might have said like if that was a game losing play that cost us, you know, I don't know, fucking some contentious rank game that I cared about in League of Legends, I might have 5 years ago said like, fucking Nick, dude, or Mitch, dude, you fucking suck. You're such a, and then I would have said like an ableist slur, like the R word, or I would have called you like this. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna drop the N bomb there. That scared the shit out of me.
Definitely not. No, I like I said, I'm pretty good at myself now, but
my heart just stopped for a second there.
No, I won't. I'm not. I have no intention of taking you off Twitch, buddy. I'd be taking myself down too. What the fuck would be the point of it? No, what I'm trying to tell you is that, like, you know, before I started paying attention to the language that I used, I guess I just kind of let it free flow out. You know, I was prone to this sort of shit too. So this is not like a phenomenon that you are particularly vulnerable with, nor is it one that I think you're the most I guess egregious of committing. Like, again, I don't see you as dishonest. I don't see you as the heart of the problem. I think you're a pretty good guy that means well. And so, yeah, I would just be interested in seeing if, like, maybe showing you some studies on the use of language and how that can impact other avenues of our daily life. And that, you know, say, for instance, if you don't want to be a Nazi, not in the view of other people, but like if you yourself don't truly want to harbor these values, that maybe hanging around people that use these memes quite often could harm your desires in that respect. If that makes sense.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. All I'm trying to say is that, like, you know, if you don't consider yourself a Nazi, or don't consider yourself a white nationalist, don't consider yourself somebody who's overly concerned with race, if you consider these values core to who you are, and you don't really care too much about, like, talking about them as meaningful societal problems, that it can only be to that person, or you in your case's detriment, to surround yourself with people that think otherwise in that respect. And again, like, sometimes this can be good. Sometimes people, like, say, for instance, you know, Christians might not really care too much about, I don't know, the science behind homosexuality, or the science behind, like, climate change. They might just be like, nope, God has a plan for all this thing. I don't really care about this. If a Christian in that circle of, we'll say, mostly hive-minded people felt like, man, I don't jibe with what the collective that I'm a part of is saying. I kind of want to check out what these scientists are saying and just see if there's any truth to it. Somebody like them might be persuaded by what you and I would consider good detraction from their ideas, good pushback, good resistance of their ideals, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's not always a bad thing talking to people that you disagree with. That's not my point here. My point is that if you don't think you'll ever care about black people being genetically inferior to white people, and if you don't think you'll ever really care about things like, again, having a super majority or just an ethnic majority in general, 51% or 60 or 90%, whatever ethnic majority of white people in the United States, if you don't think you'll ever care about that, then I implore you to consider that, like, you are only doing yourself a disservice by hanging around people that do care about that stuff and care about it so prominently. But again, we could talk about that some other time. I could show you some studies. Yeah.
All right,
yeah. Sweet. Well, I'm good if you want to talk later.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's been good. You know, it was a bit rocky starting off, but that's mostly my fault.
No, I feel like it was a good conversation all around. I don't think it was too rocky.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Nice, man. Well, hey, again, like, I appreciate you. I don't think you're dishonest. I don't think you're a Nazi. I like your content roughly. Again, I mostly am aware of the Dark Souls streams. I don't think you don't really cover politics too often on Twitch.
Don't worry. I'm not expecting you to endorse me or anything. It's okay.
Oh, well, again, you know, if I talk to you, I'll give you a shout out. You know, MitchFynde is the guy I'm talking to. SO MitchFynde. I think I spelled that right.
I had the shout out already lined up just so that I wouldn't I wouldn't screw.
Yeah, I saw that. And yeah, sweet. Okay. Well, shit, like I said, we can talk later if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, good shit. Hey, peace out, buddy. Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, have a good one. Have a good
Yeah,
one.
You as good. Or you as well. Take care. You know what I meant.